call our meeting to order. Today is the City Council workshop. This is Tuesday, November 2nd, 6 p.m. We're in the Public Works building. Want to call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Miller,
Here.
Mr. Wolf,
Here.
Ms. Hamilton,
Here.
Mr. Welly,
Here.
Mr. Smith is absent.
Okay. We're going to stand for a moment of silence. On the pledge. So, Mr. Bill, would you mind just do a prayer for us? Please? Yes.
So let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to come together peacefully and civilly to make decisions on the city and how it's being run. We appreciate your patience with us. We know we are not perfect. And please overlook our sins and misgivings. We thank you for all the wonderful gifts you've given us, the water, the beach, the water, and all of your gifts. We ask, thank you in Christ's name.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
that little that's okay. We already called the roll. Okay. Workshop agenda. It's going to be Harley. And we're talking first about accessory structures on commercial properties. Okay.
The technical difficulties continue. Okay, so yes, we are having this workshop after we briefly discussed at the last council meeting about food trucks, accessory uses, and accessory structures. I hope by now you've had a little bit more time to digest what are in the memos that are before you and in the packet. We can briefly go back over that. It's we're looking to assist the city in any decisions to potentially amend these existing regulations for food trucks, accessory uses, and accessory structures in order to create location criteria, use, accessory uses, and or structures that the city would like to associate with food trucks. Do y'all have any specific direction you want to start the conversation in?
Looks like the first thing we have on here is just basically the word of what a food truck is.
Right, that's correct. So our first issue is that food trucks and food trailers are both defined as two separate entities in a way that's really unclear and difficult for the city to consistently make decisions against. The definition for food trucks follows very similarly what Florida statute defines mobile food dispensing vehicles as. Alternatively, and a little more complicatedly, more complex, is food trailers are defined by what they are not. And it says food trailers are not a building. They are not a home occupation. They are not a food truck. And then it also goes into that it allows food vending machines to operate for 72 hours within the city, which doesn't really make sense under the definition of what a food trailer is not. But I digress. It's a bit complicated in that. So our recommendation for just this section alone is to first clear up the definition of food trucks and do that in a way that only uses the term like mobile food dispensing vehicles, perhaps. But just taking away the separation between food trailers and food trucks because the definition that we have we don't think is effective, and it's we're not sure what the goal is really.
So let's talk a little bit about that to begin with as far as the terminology. In this Florida statute, it does say mobile food dispensing vehicles, and when I read this, it just makes a lot of sense that, and I read the statute, that we might want to move all our wording to the Florida statute, because we can do more than the Florida statute, but we can't do less, of course.
Correct.
So this would make some clarity, I believe, on as far as terminology. Were there any other terminologies that were kind of like confusing in here? You mentioned Structures and buildings, and
Accessory uses is also unclear, as well as principal use, as well as accessory structure. The next three memos go into each of the three details a little bit more in depth. We think they are all interrelated. If we look at first defining food trucks, then we want to look at what accessory uses, if any, we want food trucks to have. But that also includes deciding whether food trucks are principal uses themselves.
tell us a
code's
little bit about
unclear
the
about that.
principal use terminology.
So in our zoning districts, I didn't bring up listing principal uses as it is, but in our zoning districts, we have principal uses listed out for what's allowable in each zoning district. Without that principal use, if you don't have it, you're not allowed in that zoning district. That's how we regulate uses by area.
So how are we using principal use as a terminology? Principal use is just could be house?
It's single family residential, multifamily residential, churches, outdoor recreation. The list is quite extensive for that. But instead, next to that, we have our accessory uses that are allowed if you have a principal use first. And in accessory uses, we start by, in some categories, we list what's allowed, what's restricted, and what's prohibited. But then you have some zoning districts that don't have any listed allowed accessory uses. They only have restricted accessory uses. So for example, on your memo, for general commercial, tourist commercial, public institutional, recreation, tourist mixed use, it doesn't allow any, but it restricts areas and sheds to require them to be enclosed by opaque fencing. And then it says no accessory buildings used for industrial storage or hazardous, I don't know how to say that word, noxious materials shall be located nearer than 100 feet from the property line. And then all other uses are prohibited. So you're not specifically listing any allowable uses, but you're restricting a few that you didn't list initially as allowed. So under this, I would interpret that your accessory uses are only areas in sheds for outside storage and accessory uses for hazardous material, which I don't think is the intent of the city.
Yeah.
But it's with tying it back to food trucks, it's important for us to decide if food trucks are principal uses. Because if a food truck was considered a principal use, it would be required to meet all the requirements of the Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code, including parking, landscape requirements, and the such.
Carly, that's kind of where I was on it. It seemed to me when I read through all of this,
Mhm.
we were doing more to say what we don't want versus what we do want.
Right.
If we just put what we do want, wouldn't that limit the amount of minutia in here?
Be great. So that's why we wanted to bring this up as a workshop item. For if you were interested for us to look further into this and kind of clean it up and make sure it really meets the intent of the city in whatever that direction is. But right now, there's a lot.
And basically what I got out of it was, the terminology, the allowable area, and the different types versus principal versus accessory. So I was on the right track. Okay, I'm clear on it, as far as terminology. So I'm gonna open this to the public, so you may have some questions to answer for us. Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks, Lisa.
I figured you'd eventually see me back there.
I seen you first off. I sure did. Go ahead.
Okay, I have multiple issues going on here.
Just so we can stay.
Oh, Lisa Logan, Maryland.
Thank you.
I think y'all are taking all of this out of context to begin with. You need to understand what the thinking was when we decided on food trucks versus food trailers. And to be clear, we did some on food trucks and food trailers before the hurricane. We did a whole lot more after the hurricane because we had no restaurants. The food trucks were supposed to be here temporarily, except under an exception that we made, as y'all hopefully remember, after the hurricane, so that we would have places to eat. The food trucks, and this went on, we did not try to settle this in a 30 or 40-minute meeting, y'all. This was weeks of meetings to hammer this out. So I'm astonished that you're even going to attempt to try to do this in 30 or 40 minutes tonight. That just scares the daylights out of me. But the food trucks were to be brought in for short purposes, up to 72 hours. The food trailers were to be put on a lot and they were to be stabilized there. They were not to be moved for X amount of time, which was months or years. For instance, Killers wanted to bring in that. So the intent that y'all say is missing is there. The intent was to give us a short-term fix for places to eat until we got our restaurants back. That was the intent of all of this. And to say that there is no difference between a food truck and a food trailer, I disagree with that. I think there's very large differences. And as a writer, for someone to say mobile food dispensing machine is just ridiculous. But if you're gonna have food trucks and food trailers or these dispensing vehicles, then understand why we're doing it and understand that there was a great deal of concern about these vendors taking away from brick and mortar vendors, which right now is not an issue because we have no brick and mortar vendors, but if we have them in the future, it's going to be an issue. So I think that you need to back up and understand what we were doing here and why before you just start tossing stuff out. And you need to keep this simple. May I continue?
You may, yeah, we don't need that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You need to keep this simple and straightforward and saying where it can go and what it's not. We've not had, to my knowledge, problems with this. I don't understand what the big problem has suddenly become. So you need to look at this in the context in which it was written and understand why we did this, and then to not be so quick to say, oh, let's just toss it out and do something else. I'll be back.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm not limiting anybody's conversation because it's a workshop.
Judith Black, 15
You
Street.
guys.
Along the same lines of brick and mortar, as I recall, there were complaints from brick and mortar restaurants about food trucks and food trailers because they felt like they couldn't compete. They had, the food trucks and trailers have such low overhead compared to a brick and mortar that their prices were undercutting the brick and mortar. So you may have trouble attracting brick and mortar business coming in for food because they can't meet the prices that the food trucks can meet. And I personally don't like food trucks. I want to go to a sit-down restaurant. So please don't set up something that will scare away or discourage brick and mortar restaurants.
Can I say something just so everybody understands? In 2020, Florida passed a law that basically said municipalities, they can decide where food trucks go, they can regulate them in numerous ways, they can't issue a license, they can't charge a fee for being here, and you cannot prohibit them totally.
Right.
You have to let them in somewhere.
So that opens a door that I would like to address. Have we thought about the future of these food trucks and also the future of getting brick and mortar? And this is the only time we have to talk is when we're here, so this is a great time to bring this up, I believe. So,
There's a lot of small towns that everybody can look up on the internet that have adopted areas that they'll put their food trucks in. And it's not in 5 different areas, it's in one area. That may be something we'll look at. I don't think it's anything that's gonna go away. I think we should identify it, you know, whether it has a motor or not have a motor, what is it? You know, if it has a motor, you got 72 hours, you're in, you're out, I don't know. With a trailer, that sticks around for a while.
I think, you know, the definition is set forth for the mobile food dispensing vehicle. Basically encompasses a trailer as well.
Yeah.
It's just something that can be moved, whether it's self-propelled or dragged
Right.
there.
Right.
So that, I mean, that, the definition of that in the statute does cover both.
Just changing that verbiage is gonna cover both, and I imagine in the ordinance, we would want to make sure that if there's the 72-hour thing, that you only want certain types of these dispensaries to be for 72 hours, you would outline what they look like, I guess. Is that right? Or is that even an issue here?
I don't necessarily think it is an issue. I mean, if you set forth where a food truck can be, and it's under the definition of what a food truck is under Florida statutes, you know, you always have special permits. Like if you have an event,
Right.
the golf cart, you know,
Like the sheriff's department?
Christmas thing, you know, parade, and you want to set up a golf cart, so you can have a special permit and
Yeah.
to do it. We have a turtle festival in Port St. Joe. Yeah, we have a special permit. We have like 5 or 6 food trucks at the event.
And that's covered in there, I think. It's covered for events.
When Mr. Babel was here, he and I had some discussions, he and I and Michael, we were actually talking about, planning for the future, and, we were talking about getting some of these food trucks and stuff off of 98, and where else could the city have that we could say the food trucks could, like, have a food truck district? And there were 2 places brought up, at the pier, where we have, I think, a couple lots. And then the old fire station. So, area. So I don't know how big that is over there, but it looks like it's a fairly good size. And it's off of 98, but it's close enough to 98 to have a sign at the food truck district or whatever. And that's a lot. If eventually we want to move that way, because we do want the free water to come back. We probably, as a council, need to really start thinking how we can entice some restaurants. I was just talking with the gentleman from St. Joe today, St. Joe Company, and I don't even remember what his name was, but we were talking about having a grocery store. It's like you need a high-end grocery store here because this huge built. I'm like, I don't know how we can get a really upscale, he's thinking Publix, of course, how we can get an upscale when we've only been, talking to people like Piggly Wiggly kind of thing. I don't know how that's gonna turn out, but we do need to think about our infrastructure as far as restaurants and grocery stores, because that's a nice place out there, and I think it'll, fill up, and then there's lots of other developments coming, that we need to really kind of start planning for that future.
You just brought up something that, I'll tell you that. You just brought up something with the 2 locations where you had been tossing around as, food truck areas. Well, you mentioned the old fire station. That is in a residential area. This is one of the things that I was reading, in the proposed language, to remove the restrictions on stuff. I can tell you, as a person who lives here, I don't want food trucks anywhere in a residential area. So while that may be a city-owned property,
Isn't it a commercial property as well? Or is
it's a city, it's a municipal property,
Public institution.
Public institution?
but it is
Okay.
surrounded
Right.
by residential, so that's something that y'all have to be extremely careful about. You do not want to be putting food trucks and food trailers in our residential areas.
That's true.
So watch that very carefully. And yes, we need to be trying to bring back brick and mortar. That is the second half of the recovery of the city that we have not done anything for. We have not planned, we have not had any kind of workshops to create plans to bring businesses back. We need to have the citizens get in on this. What basic services do we want to come back? Because most of them are gone. And we residents certainly need our basic services back. Forget amenities, we just want the basics back. And there needs to be a lot of work and a lot of research, and then there needs to be a very active, small group of citizens and city council members who are actively soliciting this. But you gotta talk to the businesses, you know the problem, the businesses won't come back until they have a workforce here, the workforce won't come back until there is affordable workforce housing. So it's all tied together, getting off of the food trucks, but this food truck issue is not going to be solved tonight.
We just want to get citizens' input for sure. And after him.
Hi, Tim Linder, 157 Francis. I just wanted to remind everybody, so Lisa brings up some valid points, and there's an opportunity to address this in great detail that I don't know if you're aware of or remember. The city was awarded $75,000 for a grant for future planning, long-term planning. Chris is aware of it. And you can add to that, the city could add money to it to expand it. But that, you need to take advantage of that, and if you're not thinking about how to use that, in the grant we applied for, we laid out some things. I don't know if we can do everything given the funding we have, and maybe you want to add to it, take a look at it. But you need to take a look at that grant and how it was provided and what for, and it's for long-term planning, and you could do the things that Lisa just talked about. We need to do those things to shape the city's future the way we want it, not the way the developers want it, working with them perhaps, making it what we want to make it. There's $75,000 out there to help with this.
And I've had several thoughts about planning and definitely want to get citizens involved, get it like a committee that would, have citizens and council, of course, there would be open meetings just like, public open meetings just like we have today and with our charter review, and so they do public open meetings, and we could all work together. And then we could come up with some plans, and I got some information from the city's training I just went to that actually talked about plans.
I'm sorry, John. And the thing I guess I need to highlight too is this pays for an expert or experts to come in and help with this. And so it's not us trying to figure this out. It's bringing people who do this for a living, and they'll produce a product that isn't something that we put on the shelf and say, we got this plan on it. Hopefully we'll use it.
Okay, guys.
John Harrell, 43 First Street. I guess what it comes down to, which is one of the first questions I ever asked on the first meeting I ever attended, the vision for the city, full-time residents, tourists, which way are we going? Because if, as a tourist visiting our beach, those food trucks make a great place for them to stop. Makes a great place for the workers that are working on the houses here. We have to keep that in mind. Plus full-time residents that don't want to see it to get crowded and want a brick and mortar restaurants and grocery stores and stuff. So when you're thinking about this, and I agree with Lisa, I don't think this can be done in 30 minutes. I really don't. But we got this, as a town, we have to decide which way we're going. Are we going to serve two masters? And if we are, how are we going to serve them? Because if tourist brings, and Adrian, you're the resident expert on the tourist dollars, how much it brings to us. I hear you quoting it all the time. So is that money enough to justify stuff? Or are we going to be a beach town for retirees and Tyndall employees? I think you have to consider this before we make any kind of rash decision on what we're going to do. And have like Tim says, a master plan. Because if the tourists come here and they got no place to get something, they're on the beach all day and they didn't bring their stuff and want to get something to eat, where are they gonna go? Okay,
Well,
So-
we're not talking about getting rid of food trucks by any means.
I know that, but it sounds like this is the.
No, yeah, absolutely.
So this is the starting plan, but I'm just saying, this is what we need to consider. And we need some kind of goal.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, I know, we were devastated five years ago, but it's time, to move in a positive direction. And that's primarily why the citizens are here, and that's why we have you guys here, is to make these decisions for our future. That we need to decide which way we're gonna go. Because years ago, when it was decided to make from 8th Street down dedicated beach, I think was a wonderful idea, because I live down there. So it's a wonderful idea. But it was someone that took the time and said, well, we're gonna do this is the best for the growth of our city. So now you're at that stage, so you guys have to make this decision, and if you don't do it right, well, if you do it right, you're gonna get yelled at, so whichever way you go. But what I'm saying is, please consider, are we gonna be a tourist town, or are we gonna be a retirement community, or are we gonna be both? And that's, I know it's hard, but someone's gotta make these decisions. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say that, we are part of the Florida League of Cities, and there's a lot of benefits to that I didn't even know about. We can actually get somebody from the Florida League of Cities at a very reduced rate than going out and hiring, a big company, a big firm, to come in here. We can get an expert to come in with planning through the Florida League of Cities at a discount rate. Something you might want to consider as a city.
Well, before you do that, let me just remind you, there have been 2 vision plans for the city of Mexico Beach over the 22 years I've been here. And I've seen planners come in and they bring ideas that do not fit the city of Mexico Beach. We are unique. We are unique not just because of our crazy makeup of citizens here, but we are unique in our layout and in our location. And these plans have to be tailor-made for the city to work for the residents who are here. And so you have to be very careful, because I've seen it over and over. Planners come in, and while we explain what we need and what we want, they see something drastically different. They see a little town that needs to cater more to tourists and grow, and why aren't you developing all this property, and where are all the condos and all the, no, that is not.
Yeah.
We have a brand and a product that is Mexico Beach, that we have been selling this product for the past 20 years. And it does not fit what a lot of planners come in and see, because we don't want to be 30A. And that's what most planners bring. So you've got to be extremely careful about this, and this is where the citizens come in. What do we residents want the town to be, just like John was saying? So all of this factors in. Before we start planning, we've got to figure out, do we want to continue to be the product and the brand that we have been selling and advertising? Or are we moving away from that? Or are we going to try to save what there is left of this town? That's got to be settled before any of this planning can go on.
So, with what I was saying, with these planners, or this conference thing, they actually said, you have to get your citizens involved. They pushed that, and they gave us this big plan of how to work and get the citizens involved in this. And of course, we all want you guys involved in everything. We want this transparent and inclusive, including everyone. Okay, so let's back to the food trucks. Come on. Oh, I can't remember if it was a food truck. That's okay, so you can come up and talk about
Let me
anything.
see if I can help, if I remember what I'm going to. Oh, Sue Hogan, 25 cents, or 25 cents. We have been told over and over again that 2 cans is coming back. And then we hear it's not coming back. And then it is coming. Do you all have any idea if they have any plans?
I just had lunch with one of the partners yesterday, and they,
How nice.
and they are planning on coming back.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, and that might be.
Well, that partner I was telling
I like
you,
specifics.
he didn't give me any definitive dates, but he,
Okay.
It's not relevant to our agenda, but anyway.
yeah, but they do plan on coming back. The partner that I had lunch with yesterday is also one of the partners for Sugar Sands. And so, right now they're focused on that, trying to get, phase 2 approved here with the city. And then they're gonna go back and get started on 2 cans. They're also looking at maybe opening up a couple other restaurants here, just FYI.
Perfect. And I think that was a food truck situation, because we want to move, forward. And it is workshop, so I think
And
we.
brick and mortar.
Workshop, not-
And brick and mortar. Sorry, bye.
Anyway,
Do you need to go somewhere?
no,
Okay, so, any questions for Carly about what we're talking about as those terminology, where the trucks will be allowed, or the types of structure use?
That's what, just one clarification is, with this presentation, we're really just looking to, when an application comes into us, make sure that we are consistently making the same decisions for all the applicants. And we feel that with the language we have here, it's really difficult to do. I think intuitively, when you say food truck and food trailer, one drives itself and one is pulled behind. And that's not what the definitions explain.
Yeah, we're contradictory. In the ordinance that we have right now,
Yes.
it says food trailers are prohibited, and then you go down to the food truck definition, and it includes what we're prohibiting.
Okay, absolutely.
So
I mean, that was a good catch.
So,
it's just one of those things that we wanted to bring forward that we came across, and how do we want to move forward if we want to do it at all?
How about on accessory use and accessory structures? What,
Okay.
tell me a little bit about that, because if I would make a model of what we would want, I think Killer Seafood is a model of what we would want, and I wouldn't want to pick another one. There's several out there that vary all over the place.
Okay. So, food trucks, accessory uses and accessory structures. We first have to look at that table that I was explaining earlier where it lists food, accessory uses, as what's allowable on a piece of property that already has a principal use. So it's a little intertwined there, but our recommendation for that is to use the definition generally for accessory uses, which is a use of a nature customarily and or functionally incidental or subordinate to the principal use on a lot. So if you have a house, you can have a shed, cut and dry. We can regulate the shed after, but generally, if you have a house, you can have a shed. Going into the accessory structures that may be allowed with anything, if you first decide that a food truck is a principal use, then it's allowed an accessory use and it's allowed an accessory structure. You could decide not to make a food truck a principal use and still specifically say in your code that if a food truck is on a lot, we can allow X, Y, and Z to support that food truck. The city can decide to specifically lay that out. Right now, it's not. I want to specifically mention that for accessory structures, the city has a few different regulations that specifically for a food truck make it kind of impossible. That one being that the maximum size of an accessory structure is limited to 75% of the primary structure. So for a food truck, that'd be a really small something. It's also limited in height, and it specifically states that vehicles shall not be an accessory structure. So that's the regulations we have right now for accessory structures.
I can give you an example. A couple of years ago, or actually about a year and a half ago, we spent months working on the food truck ordinance. One of the big things that we were worried about was on Reed Avenue, there was like 3 or 4 empty lots. And we made it so a food truck could not be a principal use. It could only be placed on a lot where there was already an existing business. Because we were terrified someone would just come in and plop a food truck right in the middle of Reed Avenue. So that's what we did. Just kind of an example.
But I also think it's important that we don't make it easier to be a food truck. You used Killer as an example. Well, we're not gonna get a brick and mortar there because we made it easy for them to have a permanent awning and platform. No, we shouldn't be doing it. It should not be easier to have a food truck here than to have a brick and mortar restaurant.
And we also made the regulation, which we've enforced, that a food truck is not a permanent structure. We've already decided that. That's not in question. And, we also made the ruling that a food truck had to be on a property with an existing permanent building. So what's the problem? It's
So-
there.
Using that, if it's not a permanent structure, then how do they get accessory uses? Because they shouldn't have, because there is
They
no
shouldn't
primary.
We made some exceptions after the hurricane.
Temporary.
Temporary is the key. And those have not been enforced. That's the problem, and that's been the problem all along with so much of this, is the enforcement of the things that we already have.
I don't see anything in that West Beach's current ordinance that states that it can only be accessory use, that it can't be a principal.
But the food truck?
I don't either.
No, I'm talking about the awning, the
Right.
platforms, those are accessory uses.
Well,
A pole barn.
maybe it got changed, but I remember very clearly the argument that food trucks were not to be permanent and they had to be on a lot where there was a permanent structure.
Well, the definition of a food truck is a mobile food dispensing vehicle, meaning that it can walk. It's not permanent. You can be there as long as the property owner gives you a lease to be.
I mean, so to me, it seems to me that, one's on an axle and one's not. I mean, that's what something mobile is, generally is on an axle.
So right now, the city requires that a food truck has written approval from the property owner. They have a state license. They are at least 10 feet from all property lines or meet the zoning district setback, whichever is greater. They're required to comply with the law enforcement and provide trash and recyclable receptacles and obtain a local business license. That's what we have for food trucks right now. And they're allowed in,
Health department.
I think it's with the
That's all the
Department of
state,
Business
the state
Regulation.
preempted us from doing anything. It's all through the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, licensed food truck.
Why do we have recyclables when we don't have recycling in the city?
Good question.
I thought it was.
Optimistic.
Because for a small town, recyclables is so expensive.
Well, and Bay County in general doesn't recycle.
Exactly. You have to go to Walmart for plastic bags if you want to drop them off. They'll throw it by the drink machine. Hidden.
So I'm gonna pull the discussion back in. Anybody else have anything they want to say about what you feel we should be looking at as far as terms, allowability, and types of use? Yes, okay.
Cindy Jolly, 2703, Holly 98. I guess that in my mind, I'm thinking in terms of when we have a food truck or food trailer and we let all the accessories become larger than the trailer itself. There's no control at that point. So we shouldn't have an awning 6 times the size of the trailer, because at that point, you're not, you can't compete. A brick and mortar parking lot, the cost of developing a parking lot is so great, but yet you now have an awning 80% bigger than what or times the size of your trailer. So maybe we need to also fine tune the accessories to keep them within scope of, the trailer.
Yeah, because there's no parking requirement on a trailer either. So
No.
again, it's easier to have a trailer than it is a garage.
And as long as we allow that, as long as we don't make this a little bit tougher and make some timelines even, that we're gonna probably never have brick and mortar.
I think you can have a blend of both, but you need to balance
But if
both.
you
The competition's fine. I'm gonna go to a sit-down restaurant because I enjoy that environment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm a 2 hour away, I'm not running by a food truck and have a taco, you know? I'm gonna do what's best
It's
for
a
me.
great balance. You see it in other cities. They have a great balance. They have a food truck and brick and mortar. We don't have any brick and mortar per se. We have to move toward that. And as long as it's easier and cheaper and they don't have property taxes and they don't have all this stuff to deal with, insurance, they're not gonna leave. You know, they're gonna just stay, and we got to put some limits and either limit where they're at or make some type of regulations that will control some of these issues.
You know, the main thing is, we gotta change this, cause it's complicated.
Yes.
And then I think be a little more definitive in terms of where they're
Where they're
allowed.
allowed.
Like right now, it's just restaurants, we're anywhere with restaurants and open air cafes.
It's like
Yeah.
any property owner
What
can
that
say, yeah,
is-
I'll give you permission to be on my property, and that's,
It's general commercial, tourist commercial, and tourist mixed use.
but our commercial residential is considered commercial, so if there was a house there, now there's not, they can still give them permission to put a food truck there. We go
Like
by
on La
these-
Siesta.
And that is one of the problems that we have so much trouble with, because our commercial and our residential are so intertwined that there was a great deal of pushback from the residents because those who are in residential surrounded by commercial didn't want food trucks right there in their faces. So that's, again, the uniqueness of Mexico. You've got to figure this out.
Because currently I can pull in a food truck, put 50 picnic tables out and not have a single parking spot, and that's okay. But if I build a restaurant with 50 seats, I better make sure I have the right number of parking
So
spots.
that's why it's more important that we would write this correctly, so that when you're handing out a permit, that permit covers everything other than what Jolie was talking about, the, adding a structure here, adding this here. Before you know it, you have what you believe is a full structure. And that wasn't what was approved on the permit, so we need to get back to the permit
Well, you
to
really,
go there.
you're preempted from issuing the permit.
We can't permit them, but we can tell them where they can
They
go.
can,
No,
where they can
But
go.
we have rules on how it looks, what to do, right?
We can tell them if they can have it on.
That's
or
just
not.
rules.
Right,
It's not
Exactly.
I understand what you're saying, it's just a matter of semantics, but
Right, but the state
we
of
can't
Florida
say
said
permit.
they could have food trucks. We have to have
Or
rules
regular.
for that.
Yeah,
we can't.
regulation, regulatory
Where they're at.
requirements. Yeah, so, okay, anybody else in the,
So, as I listen to this, it sounds like there's a lot more to consider. So maybe you ought to give it like the P and Z. They're already in existence. You've got a group that understands land development code and the comprehensive plan. Maybe they could take a look at it and working with Carly, come up with some recommendations. So you don't have to make a decision tonight. You can put some thought into it. It's just a recommendation.
okay. And that's what Carly was bringing us, her recommendations for these changes.
These are very, very small recommendations in the,
yeah, she really
The
didn't
grand
get into
scheme
like
of
where
things.
they're gonna be, that's all stuff.
Right.
You gotta,
right.
you gotta
One
tell her and
direction
me.
for
so we
that,
can
but
talk
our
about it.
recommendations are very surface level about maybe where to get started is first establishing a definition.
Yes.
That's a little clearer.
So where do we go from here?
If I can say something.
Yes, sir.
What initially started this whole conversation was there was another food truck here in town that wanted to put up a structure similar to what Killer Seafood has. Now, so far, I've not heard any widespread support for allowing that in the future, because right now it currently isn't allowed based on our land development code. But like Carly probably needs some direction in that regards. If there is no interest in that, we leave everything the way it is, but if anyone is interested in allowing those structures in the future, then she also needs to know that.
And that structure was, for a aluminum enclosure, screened enclosure that would provide shade similar to what the Killer Seafood has, but it's not nearly as big and it is removable. So that's what had come to Carly and I had talked about. You know, how is that in our code? What do we need to do? Is that something we want to look at? Is it not something we want to look at? You know, I think this is the way we need to do it.
The Killer Seafood approval, was it temporary or forever?
Temporary.
When's temporary over?
It's
I have to go back and
either this
research.
year or last year.
What are you asking?
The
Is
pole
the
barn?
decision to allow that structure being temporary? Or the temporary business operations
I
that
think-
was an ordinance before the food truck ordinance?
I think they gave them temporary permission to build that pole shed. I don't think it was ever supposed to be permanent, but I wasn't here, so I can't say for sure.
My interpretation, and I should go back and rewatch it, but I did watch it in preparation of this, when that decision was made, that was when the city was operating under a temporary business ordinance to allow people to be in temporary structures and perform their business operations. From that, we went to the food truck ordinance, that's the language we have now. That decision was made before that ordinance, and it was done under the context, of my understanding, that the food trucks were temporary and the structure would be removed when the food truck had to be removed. That's the temporary nature I understood.
So that pole shed or awning, whatever it is, can stay forever until the truck leaves.
We should go back and look at the minutes of that, but it was my understanding that it meant temporary and that food trucks weren't yet allowed all the time, and this was before Florida statute said cities had to do what cities have to do. And in doing that, eventually, I think it was implied that the city wouldn't allow those temporary businesses, and that when that wasn't allowed, the pole barn would be removed, or pole shed, whatever you want.
In relation to that, the CCCL line, is that controlled by the city? Or is that controlled by the state? Because that's why they won't rebuild, because they gotta go up, because their property's right in the middle of it. That's why they won't build up.
Unless they build exactly what they had.
It's too late.
Right.
Yeah, that's
That's
right.
right.
Because it's-
You got grandfather in that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send all you guys a copy of this. This is much more detailed, it goes into a lot of different things, might help you just to think about it.
And again, I don't think this was for making any decisions tonight, it was for discussion, giving maybe some guidance to where we might wanna go.
So where are we going?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't make the agenda, I
But where
didn't,
we go?
I don't know why it's on a workshop versus a special meeting.
Well,
I don't know what the,
I think there's a couple of choices, obviously a workshop would be one, but
Send it for a workshop.
okay, yes, sir.
Just had a policy.
Can you step up here, sir? I'm sorry. We need to all like step up here.
Don't have no coordinate. Do the insurance companies like State Farm, Progressive, all this differentiate between a food truck or a food trailer? And if they do, we follow those guidelines, they've had this problem a lot longer than we have. And if they have a definition, different, say what the difference is, see what that is, and if they can do that guideline to follow, it'd be consistent with, for the business owner also.
Now, I look at, when you think about a temporary structure versus a permanent structure, and I know it's not a food trailer, but, Prestige, is that it? That's on 90? Yeah, Prestige. So that's a mobile unit that has been, I guess, immobilized, has, you know, skirting under. Is that full-time? I mean, is that permanent? Is that forever?
I think
You know.
ordinance says no. I think our current ordinance says no, I think that was a temporary building too, but.
Yeah, I mean,
Might be good to check with the insurance company, see how they differentiate between two, and use that as a outline guideline.
yes. good thoughts.
I don't know how we define it.
And I think, you know, the citizens are ready to get some definitions, I'm sure. Get some understanding, start reeling things back in to get back to some normalcy and start having some brick and mortar. We're on it, and the only way we're gonna do that is to make some decisions in the future, like the planning stuff, and start planning, how are we gonna pull this stuff back in? Where are we gonna allow the food trucks, where we're not gonna allow food trucks? Cause temporary, I think, is over. It's 5 years. Temporary's over. So, all right, so for Carly, do we wanna let her go and what do you want us to do, Carly? You're getting red.
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud, exactly.
That's, I think the discussion here tonight really emphasizes how complicated it is, and that there is not a clear answer, or a clear path forward, and that there's so many issues that are intertwined in this conversation. We were here for direction.
Yeah, I understand.
You know, the only thing, my concern would be, you know, we just don't have a lot of commercial property in Mexico Beach proper. Down the road, we will in the future, all that's building up, there'll be hundreds of new homes coming in, and they have allotted some commercial property down there. That's what I foresee is where the big restaurants are gonna be and the Publix one day. It's not gonna be in the original Mexico Beach because the commercial property over the years has been converted to residential. So these little tiny lots, except for Killers, where the food trucks are, they're so limited in what they can do anyway. You know, I mean, Killer owns that property, they own a couple of lots, so they expanded all that. I don't think it's gonna be ever their plan to do a brick and mortar. But these other little places with the trucks, those lots are so small, I don't see what they can do much with them, and we need them because that's all we have. The tourists love them, the construction people, where would they go eat if they didn't have those places? So we need them. But as far as the reality, there's not enough commercial property right here in our town. It's gonna be down the road when hundreds of more people come in. They're gonna have a Publix maybe one day, and the restaurants, that's where that's gonna be, that's the future. As much as we may not like hundreds of people coming, it's gonna happen, and they will have control. That's gonna be their property, and they're gonna be the ones that are gonna have control of how they're gonna market that, and who's gonna come in.
And we as a city are funded mainly by property taxes. That trailer on that vacant lot is taxed as a vacant lot. The building on a lot is now taxable. And that's why it's also a benefit to us to have brick and mortar back. But we can beat that.
Pay taxes and pass along to the tenants.
And right now we have this ordinance that says food trailers are prohibited, but that immediately says they're okay.
There you go.
So,
Clear as mud.
need to be, yeah, whatever. Y'all need to start making that, folks.
Yeah, they can't be prohibited, but it's a state law, we know that. We just need ruling. So I would go with Mr. Lindeman's suggestion of maybe going back to the P&Z, have them work with Carl and get this settled out. Define this, get this done, then this will always be changed in the future. There's one thing I've learned over the year that I've been on council is we have a lot of stuff that hasn't been looked at on a timely basis.
Yep, yep. And even, you know, before on planning and zoning, we always said all the LCD, LDC needs to be looked at. My brain did it backwards. Needs to be looked at and very needs to be more precise, because you'll look at something in one section of it and it'll say one thing, and then you'll look at it another and it has additions to what you looked at before, but it should be over there, not over here. You know, it's really very convoluted. So I think we need to, Carly's done a lot of work here. Of course, it's minimal, but I think we should start with going on and let her start writing up her specifics. And then they can take those to the planning and zoning maybe, and what do y'all think? Rich, planning and zoning, let her go and start writing up something, language, and let them make those recommendations and then bring them back to us like they do with,
I have another comment, please.
yes, sir.
I think we ought to drop the word food and say retail truck, retail, trailer. We've got two rural places on the highway now, bicycles and kayaks and all that, operating out of the little trailer. And move down that highway, that was kind of junky. Looks like they have more merchandise and they can rent or sell them forever. And, go down Panama City Beach, you've got t-shirt shops operating out of a little trailer and all their goods is out by the street, blowing in the breeze. They're, dogs playing poker and all this kind of junk that, tourists like. And I just drop food and look at retail trailers, whether it's, food or merchandise.
That makes sense to me, because we do need to, and
Mandate
that may
trucks.
be a little bit of how this got into trailers versus trucks.
Well, adding to that conversation, we previously talked about how peddlers and beach vending are also issues.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have regulations for those.
Yeah.
We can regulate those more than the food trucks, we have a problem.
Okay, well, that makes sense too, because Florida statute says that we have to allow the food trucks.
We just don't have to allow them everywhere.
Exactly.
You put them where you want them.
So,
Do we need to differentiate between trailer and truck?
I don't think it needs to be.
Combined.
Florida statute sets forth that a trailer and a truck is basically the same thing. It's a mobile food dispensing vehicle that either is self-propelled or is taken from place to place.
So would that make it easier for you? If you don't have to differentiate, it's just all combined.
That's my understanding, that's what we're trying to.
That's, the way our ordinance is, it has the actual,
brick and mortar.
I'm sorry, hang on guys, go ahead.
the way our ordinance is, it does have the actual language from Florida statutes that defines what is a food dispensing vehicle. But then up top, it says food trailers are prohibited. And that definition basically includes a food trailer. Most of them are trailers, from what I see. And
Yeah.
they're pull, yeah, they pull up, they got a truck, they pull up their trailer.
But
They
they're all
park it.
technically food trucks.
Yeah,
under
food
the
trucks are
definition.
St. Joe Beach, where they actually put the truck.
Yeah, they hook up, it's a
That's one
trailer.
of the event guys do the trucks.
Okay,
Yes, it is.
so I'm gonna take one more question, then we're gonna close this and give Carly direction. Yes, sir, step up. Thank you.
Tim King, Kathy Wayne. Most of the cities that I've been to that have food trucks, they pull up even on a city street. They do their service during the day, but they all leave at night. They're gone. They go back and clean up and restock, and then they're back the next day. Some in Panama City are even that way, like on the corner of, what's it, Transmitter and 98, there's a Philippine cuisine comes in there, and they pull up, then at the end of the day, they leave.
And that's
That's
been
what I thought food
tradition
truck was.
for a lot of time, for a long time, but I think Florida, its statutes have just really changed a lot of that, because they can come down, they can stay, they just have to stay where we say they can stay. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna close it for the, discussion of the public. We wanna talk about how to give Carly direction.
I think what Quinn, it has, the document that he has about Fort St. Joe, maybe that could be a good resource.
I did see that.
To work with.
You just sent that to me.
You can have this.
Oh, thank you.
And then go to P and Z, is that what we were?
Yeah, y'all, like kids, yeah. So, write you up write you up, I'm from country, yeah. Write up some, a document that will serve our needs, you feel will serve our needs. Let planning and zoning look at it, give recommendations for any changes, to bring it back to those in the future. Okay. Does that sound reasonable?
Do you want that in the form of like an ordinance proposing changes, or do you want the text first and then workshop the text at both the planning and zoning and the council meeting, and then we bring it back?
Let's not bring it back, let's get
Okay.
it done in a form
Okay.
that we can look at. If we have any minor changes, which, you know, we could, when we look at it, they can have some. Even by the time it gets to us, we could still have some. But it would be minor changes probably if it's already ready.
And then do you want me to walk through all of the issues identified in this packet before you, or specify first on food trucks? Is there anything you don't want me to address?
Well,
There's a lot in front of you, and I just wanna make sure that we're
all
working
food
on
trucks.
what.
Okay,
what
and
you're-
then, the accessory use, we talked about that. Now, this is the accessory use for a district zoning, right? And this has got some,
Accessory uses and accessory structures are conversations that cover more than just food trucks and food
Right.
trailers.
yeah, widespread across our city. So your analysis on this about allowing the accessories, this really came forward because what we were talking about when we got with the food truck, right?
I just think I thought it was important to address all three of these topics if we were gonna bring up the food truck discussion. But we can start with food trucks and.
Well, I think that, I think this falls into, if you're rewording the food trucks, you really kind of need to know about the uses. And you really do need to know about the structure. What is an accessory structure? And
A really important question in this is the city needs to decide if food trucks are a principal use or not.
Or accessory.
Do they have to be either? No, that's just, like, do we have to?
that's what I would say. Do we have to say?
So it's my understanding, and I mean,
There's
it's the
principal
LDC, if it's a principal use, then it needs to meet all the requirements of the land development code. But without identifying it as either, saying that it's neither, you can allow it to go park on a lot as it is.
I say, well, if
To
we're,
be afraid that if it's a personal use, then if they gotta follow everything else, the truck would work. That would be a building.
So, we need, alright, yeah.
so what would, what would happen if we said, okay, well, it has to be a principal use and they have to meet all these
You
criteria.
can
and we've got-
define criteria that they have to meet.
And then what happens when they just pick up and motor off? You know, a truck or a trailer is temporary. It is not a permanent principal structure. A principal structure is a brick and mortar that's sitting there on a foundation that cannot be moved except by a storm. So,
Yeah.
you know, that should be pretty simple.
That was our conclusion, as well as that if a food dispensing vehicle is fully able to move, and that mobility makes it temporary to the property, should you allow permanent structures to go along with it? From what I heard,
But if you call it an accessory use.
then you have to have
they
a principal
But
use
use on it.
That's the way we
And
do
they're
it.
not.
That's how
We're
it's
afraid
written.
of vacant lots all through town, all of a sudden appear with a food truck, particularly on Reed Avenue.
Drive down 98 Mexican Beach, vacant lots.
I mean, the towns are different, obviously.
That's what we have. We have vacant lots with trailers all up and down
Yeah.
98.
And that is a problem of enforcement.
Right.
But you have to remember, we have always had accessory structures are there with a principal on the lot. And that phrase, the accessory structures, affects every single property owner in this town. It's not just a food truck we're talking about with accessory structures. We are talking about sheds, we are talking about decks and pool houses and swimming pools and
Laydown yards.
all these other things. So you're talking about every single property owner is going to be affected with your principal use and your accessory structures. So, we've always said you have to have the principal before you get the accessory. It's been a matter of non-enforcement. That's your issue.
See that?
We have it required where you have to have a permitted principal development prior to an accessory use. And it has to be completed.
It's just like somebody trying to build a garage, folks. How many times have we had people
Before they
building
build the house.
garages before the house is built? No, that's not how it works.
That's what's it.
Commercial properties, which we kind of carved out an exception for the food trucks here. You can't have an accessory building on
Right.
a commercial lot.
In St. John's.
So it might be
We just
part
made it-
of the,
We just made someone move a shed last month.
Clear as mud.
Absolutely.
we can get started. We'll see what we can do, and we'll bring it forward.
Okay. I would say it would be a principal use.
I think that's.
That's not really an accessory use.
It's not,
So it'll be regulated differently.
yeah, let's find a way to regulate that differently. Okay, thank you. And thank everyone for your input. Great conversation.
Carly, feel free to call me. if you want.
I will, thank you.
All right. Okay, let's move on the agenda to the golf cart regulation, registration regulation. Which one?
As everybody remembers, we brought this up at the last meeting, and it was strictly, I was tasked with reinstating the registration of the golf carts and the fees that were with it. Then we started talking about it, and a lot of different issues came up, and that's why we're here today to speak about it. The three main things that came up was annual fee or a one-time fee, was the registration fee would be $25 or $15, and then the big one was hours of operation. That's kind of where we left it, when we decided to bring it to this workshop. So I just need to know what you guys want, and I can write it up any way you want.
Well, I did a lot of research. Glad that Mr. Wolf recommended tabling that and bringing it to a workshop, because I did have the opportunity to do the research before I really didn't get that deep into it. So, I'll just go on and open it up to the floor, because we want to hear from you guys on this especially. And then we'll, yes, sir, we actually do. And then we'll bring it back to the board, see if we can make some decisions. Yes, sir.
Tim Leonard. So I sent the council some suggestions, recommendations, and the first thing, because there's been a lot of discussions, the first thing I'd recommend is what problem are you trying to solve, what define that? Because as I laid out for you, it could be any one of these, or it could be one thing. Is there a safety concern, enforcement, trying to generate funds? What is it you're trying to solve here? And so I would try and find that first. And then I gave you I did a little bit of research on some of the things that are happening. I think you have to look carefully at the driving in darkness, because unlike a vehicle, I don't believe golf carts have the same headlight and brake system that it's equally. So you may allow driving in the evening or a certain race period, and the guy may have a headlight that's like 10 watts versus whatever car has. So that's where I would start.
Jennifer Black, 15th Street. For me, regarding anything on the road, safety is number one. It doesn't matter if you were following the rules or not, because the rule said you could drive at 10 if you're dead.
It's gonna be hard to follow that. Lisa Logan. Following Judith's comment, safety should be the priority here. And I have been driving the streets at night here long enough to know that driving after dark with these golf carts is a major safety issue. I don't care that they've got regulation headlights. Those headlights are dim. And you can't help, but sometimes you run up on a golf cart that they may have headlights, but you can't see them. So driving after dark, and I can guarantee you this in the summertime because it happens on my block a lot. You get kids who say, we're gonna go out and play. They get in the golf cart and they're racing up and down the streets in the dark. You get the adults who are drinking and they're drinking in the golf cart and having races up and down the street. Happens on my block all the time. So you've got drunks and kids driving after dark and you can't see them. I know that y'all talked about having it mesh with the noise ordinance 10 p.m. No. Everybody goes to somebody's house and they have dinner and they have drinks and they get on the golf cart and they drive home. Cut those golf carts off. Cut those golf carts off at dawn. You might give them a 30-minute grace period, but you are putting the safety at danger of both the people on the golf cart and the people who are driving on the streets.
But the ones who are drunk really gonna, I mean, if you're drinking and driving, you're not gonna necessarily follow the law for after dark. It's illegal to be drunk driving a golf cart too.
But you can
Just-
stop them.
You can stop them.
Okay, I got a question for Mr. Marty back there.
Yeah, ma'am.
How often do y'all stop somebody on golf carts at night?
Sorry.
Regular? Oh, I didn't see you there.
Call back up.
I mean, it depends. I mean, holidays, summertime, it's much more frequent than it is this time of year. But I mean, so far this week I've gotten 30 after dark.
You had 30?
Three.
I thought you said 30 all the time. I didn't know we had 30.
33 or 3.
We're being invaded.
Okay.
No, we have influx more people and everything gets more prevalent and everything. The summers,
Yes.
kids and people and rentals and out moving around and not knowing the laws and rules or anything else.
So this is important to me. What is best for our city? As you're protecting our city and making people follow rules, what is best? No golf carts at dark. Is it working, let me just put this way, I won't put you on the spot. Is it working well the way we have it now? They have a little time after the sunset to get home?
The city ordinance pretty much keeps everything in play here in Mexico Beach. 16 years or older with a valid license is actually more than the state statute requires. Cutting them off at dark, or, if you want to make a grace period in there, we can still work with that. Running them till 10, 11 o'clock at night,
No.
that's gonna lead to more and more, and I believe it would be, it would not be good for us.
We just want your
Right.
professional opinion, and I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Like a half hour.
Yeah, I think our mail is, a half hour after sunset. Okay. So, anybody else? Golf cart?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Well, he said, yeah, and I didn't see your hand.
That's
until-
fine.
you can go first.
Go ahead, I'm not
Maybe,
You may
maybe
change my
Lieutenant Williams can answer
perspective on
this.
Name?
John Harrell, last house in Bay County. As far as,
Can you address the council?
pardon?
Can you address the council?
Well, the question is actually to the council and
Well, they
Lieutenant
can hear you.
Williams.
Oh, okay, to him, okay, I'll let you.
Is that okay?
I'll let you look back.
I mean, I can yell that way, it can reverberate.
Yeah, I will.
When you arrest someone or fine them, why does it matter about the registration? You're talking about putting a decal on the back of our golf carts, and I say our because I own one. I thought it was the law here, you had to buy one when you built the house. I didn't, someone was told me that, just teaching. Why do we need a registration for you to identify it when you got them right there? Yeah.
Okay, so here's the ultimate thing. For folks that have listed vehicles, that have the tags and stuff on them, if I find one of those and it's occupied, it's great. I go get the guy's driver's license, whatever. If I find it on the side of the road or it's abandoned, I can run the tag, just like your car has a registration. When I find a golf cart sitting on the side of the road at 2 o'clock in the morning,
It's got no VIN number, it's got nothing, it's got a serial number. It's got no way for me to figure out who owns it. I don't know if it's broken down, I don't know if it's stolen. If I have a number that I can look up on the spreadsheet from the city of Mexico Beach, it says it's decal number 1234, and I know it belongs to you, I'm gonna come knock on your door. Hey, sir, do you know where your golf cart is? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You say, crap, somebody stole it. Well, guess what? Now we've got a problem. If you say, no, it ran out of battery, I'm gonna come get a trailer in the morning, I'll come get it.
We can watch it.
We can watch it.
Okay, but if you put a boot on it, then whoever stole it can't take it, right? And then the person that is missing it will call you, hey, I'm missing a golf cart. Really?
Yes.
Well, then it wouldn't be on the side of the road like he just gave, right? They'd have to tow it out of there, right? You see my point? I'm just wondering why we have to have a sticker and why we have to pay a fee unless you're using it for a money stream. And if you are, just tell us.
Yeah, here, I've got some ideas on that, from looking at several cities.
Huh?
It's definitely not a mainstream. No.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Here's, yeah, and you got a great point, so we're gonna address that.
Okay, can I sit down now?
You can sit down.
But I wasn't gonna talk about
You
this,
have
but y'all
anything
just,
else?
but I understand what you're saying.
Cindy Jolly, and I don't have a golf cart.
You need to get one.
Yeah, I know.
You need the
But I
money.
get- Yes, and this sounds rather cruel, but, I would tow it, impound it, charge a fee for it, just like you would if it was a stranded vehicle on the side of the road. Like you said, if it's registered, then, it's about complying with the law, not all this administration that we're creating to try to be nice and say, well, this is my golf cart, and, if it broke down, what would I do if my car broke down on the roadway? I'd call the sheriff's department, or I'd call law enforcement and say, my vehicle's broke down, it's on the side of the road, it will be picked up by this date, this time. Okay, it's all about the safety. I'm all for impounding it, let me pay for it. If I left it on the side of the road or I broke the law, let me be responsible for that. Fine me for it, impound my vehicle, let me pay a fee to get it out. We'll probably all have a grocery store because we could build one ourselves,
But if you have a registration sticker,
Hang on
or
just
seal
one.
it, they can straighten it off.
Mr.
Sorry.
Harold.
Yes, ma'am. Come get me
Point
one.
of order.
Question, I thought one of the reasons for the registration was to stop the people from Gulf County coming into, because there was a discussion about the ones that crossed Highway 98, and somebody said that there were some of them that came like out of Beacon Hill. So how do you control that? Then they wouldn't have a registration for Mexico Beach if they were from Gulf County.
They have to get one if we require any golf cart on our roads to have. they have to
Right,
get one.
right.
Yeah, Exactly.
Can I state that?
Yes, sir.
Tim Lunderman. So going back to defining the problem, I thought the registration was because of the issue we have with illegal parking, crossing 98. It would help law enforcement identify the owner of that vehicle and either contact them or find them. And I think key in this is how much time they waste right now. So you're looking at resource savings and doing things that are more important for them by tracking these vehicles down now, or we're not dealing with it at all. So,
And that goes back to your first comment, which I wrote down, and it definitely, when you said the problem, safety enforcement, it's really both.
yeah, and so the sticker, and personally, I mean, I don't think $25 is a big deal, or 15.
I don't have to wear it.
But, I'm sorry, I hadn't been to the restaurant. But I think people who are causing the cost, and so the administration's program, the purchase of the decal, ought to be paying for that. And it's probably minimal. And I think it ought to be annual, because then you'll know if the same person has it, and you can keep up with it. Just like, I think, this is off topic, but the people who get the free decals who live here to use the boat ramp, they probably ought to pay a fee for that management too, and to help that. And it's not a lot, I mean, it's less than $8,000 based on what I found out the number of people, our residents. But I really believe the people who are, just because they're paying taxes, if it was equal, fine, everybody pays it. But not everybody has a golf cart, so why should the people who don't own golf carts help fund their golf cart? So I think that's why you have the fee to pay for the administration and the cost of the DPW. It's not to make money. I don't think the city's making money. However, that is a way that cities make money, is by user fees. And since we're so dependent on property tax, that is another way to make money. So.
And you bring up a good point too, because that was discussed in my training. We can't do a tax, but we can do fees. And that's, when we're real dependent on property taxing, then fees are really our savior, because some of that revenue may not always be there. But anyway. Yes, sir.
One other thing, it's also like Mexico, they have a lot of rentals. And these rentals rent their houses with the golf cart included. You have no idea whose golf cart it is, or who's on it, or whatever. It's another part of it. To be able to identify them and everything, and, you know, the person that owns the golf cart is responsible to make sure that they have the rules and regulations if he's registered. Or he's gonna need to get another piece of paper to add to his, and if you incur a fee while you're driving my golf cart, then you're responsible.
Exactly. Good point. All right, anyone else on golf carts? Okay, bring it back to the table.
You know, I agree with everything that our police force is saying. They're concerned about safety and issues with rentals. And I think that validates the reason to have annual checkups to see if there's been a transfer of ownership, to make sure that they have copies of the rules. And, you know, I think maybe a minimal amount, you know, we don't have to charge a lot, but just a minimal amount to make sure that we have that control. Okay.
A couple things. The use taxes, I like the use, so I've played with this both ways. Do we charge for it or not? Because I agree, why are we charging for it? It's not a money stream, that's not what we want it for. But why am I paying for admin fees when I don't own a golf cart? So I've got both arguments. The other one's about the sticker and why we do it. And I like the idea of towing. I'm all about towing golf carts, because golf carts, if everybody knows my history here, are a pet peeve of mine. But I've been towed for a vehicle, and when you don't know who towed you, it's hard to find that car. So when you start calling tow yards and they say, well, what's your golf cart look like? I'm gonna say it's a white one. And they're gonna say, I got 73 of those. So I think it's important to have a way to say, I have a white golf cart, Mexico Beach tag number 71. Perfect, yep, I have it, come get it. Now, I have a Mexico Beach golf cart, that's white. Yeah, don't know where that is. So that's why I like to
This is the size of the registration sticker, y'all, so you can see it.
So, but yes, the use tax, we could do it free, but then again, it's not about money. So I could go either way on that. I was one of the people that got rid of it the first time we had it because of the clerical nightmare, and that back row will probably shake their head at me because they know I was the one that brought it up back then. So I'm in favor of bringing it back. I just want to make sure we do it logistically correct, and I am against night driving because I have almost hit the golf cart myself.
Yeah, I start off with I'm against night driving also, but these are golf carts and LSVs. The only one that I'm really worried about safety-wise is a golf cart, because this is a vehicle that does under 20 miles an hour, should never, ever, ever be on the 98, the 15, or anything else. So enforcement's gonna become a big deal, it has to become a big deal. 14-year-old kids can drive a golf cart in anywhere in your neighborhoods that they want. 14 years old, that's State of Florida, that's what it says.
As of October 1st, it's 15 or older, under 18 with a learner's permit or driver's license.
Okay, I'm still evaluating my son when he's 14 to 15, I'll still go with the same thing. It's a problem because they throw on the 7-year-olds, the 8-year-olds, the 12-year-olds on the cart with them. And we really need it. If we can enforce golf carts, I think we'll have it made. I think the LSVs, they're already registered, they have insurance, all of that. They can go on the 98. So I'm not as concerned about the LSVs as I am about these golf carts.
I will say, that my hate for golf carts has gone away because my hatred for LSVs has gotten stronger because they're everywhere and they will drive 20 down 98 and do not care if you're late to church in the morning. So,
So I've done some research in several towns, some our size, some larger. They range from anywhere from no fee to $60. They've ranged from everywhere from annually this fee to one-time fee. The $60 one was like a one-time fee, but then you were required to have your cart inspected every year. You kept the same sticker, of course, decal, number and everything, but you had, and if you didn't, you got fined for that. So you can always write that in, that, you know, you have to do this by a certain date, or you're gonna get a fine for not clarifying, either dropping that your sticker is no longer in use, your golf cart's no longer in use, or that you have sold it, or whatever, otherwise you'll get fined. Financing this isn't about money. I think where we, you know, you're gonna have to have signs, so that's gonna cost us. We're gonna have issuing of the stickers, which is gonna cost us. But I think we're gonna get that back, even if we say no cost for the decal, we're gonna get that back in the fines that we're gonna get. I mean, I really think we will. So I am also against driving after dark. I have had I brought that up last time, I know, and I said, yeah, 10 o'clock, that's what citizens been asking for. But when you look at it, there was one place that said you could drive from sunset to sunrise. And when I had to read it twice because I'm like, sunset, you can drive. But they were saying you can if you have all this equipment. So we can't enforce all this equipment. I mean, not everything that, you know, they were saying that was a long list of equipment you had to have on your golf cart to make it feasible and safe for you to drive at night. I think that would be stretching our golf carts sometimes too much, and it would be too blankety to say, yeah, you can drive till 10 o'clock. No, you can only drive till 10 o'clock if you've got this, but you can't, we can't do that. I think the 30 minutes after sunset is.
The way it is right now is golf carts will only be permitted on city streets during, I'm changing it, it says from daylight hours, but really during daylight hours. That's the way it is right now.
And I think they've been giving them like a 30-minute grace, and I think we probably need to write that in there when we're writing the new ordinance. So.
Or you just leave it to their discretion.
We're pretty lenient on it, we don't, come on, get to the house.
Give me just a second, let us finish discussion.
Okay, I just want to come back to the daylight hours
Okay.
terminology.
Okay. So basically we need to give direction for Clint. Fee, no fee?
I have a compromise that I came up with while you were talking.
Okay.
Why not an initial
Over here.
fee and a zero renewal?
And there were some cities that had that. It was a one-time
No.
fee and you're done.
But you gotta
But
come
you
in and
already
renew it. You
The
don't-
audience is saying no, so. The front and the back.
Okay, they
Okay.
own carts. If it's an own cart, yeah, that's a good idea.
Because it's not about money, it's about just tracking and having a way to.
Right. So,
I think you have to go there yearly, so going there yearly and paying $15 is not gonna be a big deal. It's in that year that everything's accounted for, so it's a good accounting.
so you're saying a small fee annually, you're saying,
$15.
okay,
That's what it is now. We were gonna up it to 55. I can work whatever you guys tell me.
so.
I
what's your-
agree with 15 and annual.
15 annual?
So annual $15 fee?
I'm good with it. Okay, I think we're gonna say annual $15 fee.
Hours of operation, while leave it just the way it is on the during daylight hours.
Here's what the
So can I make a point about that real quick? I don't know if you can, is there a legal definition for daylight? There is for sunrise and sunset. You know what time that is, you can look it up. Daylight kinda arbitrary, and that's gonna be hard to enforce, is my opinion.
Should we
Yeah,
just say
good.
sunrise to sunset?
Sunrise to sunset.
Here, look, he has a.
Yeah, it reads it.
Reads, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And, you know,
I know Rock's not here, but I
Sunrise
know
and
Rock
sunset.
watches the sunset every night.
Yes.
So I'm like, he's gonna wanna drive home after that sunset.
Right.
He has an LSD though.
That's true,
Yes,
that's true.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing I seen is when the cities had a map of where it was red where you could not go on a golf cart, and it was yellow or green where you could go on a golf cart. That might be something we want to consider when we're passing out paperwork, because
They don't care, they know where they can drive, they do it anyway.
The only place you can't drive according to this is on 98.
and for
No,
86.
15th you can drive.
Yeah, you
You can drive from 50th Street as long as you got one of those tractor trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what's the speed on 50?
39.
30 miles an hour, you can't take it on.
It's not a state roadway, but it is ordinance by the city.
So,
The way the ordinance reads right now is you can if you got one of those tractor trailers. We wanna just X off?
No.
no.
Yeah.
Cause soon there's gonna be
No.
landlocked if
We
you do
can't,
that.
we can't do that.
Okay, all right.
We gotta leave 15th Street open.
That's right.
For
Okay, so
sure.
leave it just like that? You have to have
Yeah.
a triangle.
Yeah. And do we want to discuss parking? Because it seems like that's a big issue. Is there anything we want to put in here about where you can't park? Because I've noticed some of these cities that I looked at, some of them had you can't park or you can't drive in certain areas, like in their parks. You can't take it onto the grass in the parks, which should be logical. And when we do get a really nice park, we might not want it on grass, but or driving around the Sunset Park.
You might wanna really consider that about the parks, because Seventh Street Park,
Yes.
right by me, especially in the summertime, when we have rains, the kids go sliding through there and just tear the grass up.
Yeah, that's the only park it'll affect, because you can't get to Sunset or Parker Park with a golf cart without using 98, so you can't.
Right. They also drive on the walking path.
Yeah.
They drive on the walking path, so Seventh Street's really.
Yeah, that's one of
Put
the.
up some signs, no motorized vehicles in the park.
Yeah.
Let's take care of that.
Or on sidewalks.
Sidewalks, it was listed, they had sidewalks, beach, and then they had some other areas such as their parks and stuff like that.
Right away, city right away.
Yeah,
Is that already in our golf cart rules, those things?
I don't think so.
I kind of like the idea of a map that we had, I like that.
Yeah, just do out the map that shows where they're not able to go and have it written in your ordinance as well.
Like Cindy, where Cindy can go, she's got one block she can drive on. I mean, you can't cross the highway, so.
And that's not common, and working on
To go where?
one block.
To the beach, but you can't drive. Yes, ma'am, step up.
Sue Hogan, 425 7th Street. I'm sorry, I didn't understand when you said a $15 annual fee. What is that for?
For a golf cart.
Registration.
I understand it's for the golf cart, but it's if it's registered, we have to re-register every year from the
Inspection.
sticker? Just an
Inspection every year.
inspection.
Another $15.
So you all are gonna inspect our golf carts? That's that's a waste of time for you all.
I thought we took that out too.
I don't think we have that inspection.
It's still in this draft,
They just
but
have to, you just have to renew your account every year. Right, renew your details.
But there's no fee.
$15 every year.
Oh, it is still $15 every year, renew it.
So we'll do a color change or something along that line, is that what it is? Okay.
what we did before is we took the golf, or the boat ramp one, for the year, say it was green, and at the end of the year, the new year, the golf carts begin to green,
Well,
so
they all
that we
have
just
to be the
rotate.
same size
Yeah,
of.
and remember
how
it's
written.
We're gonna have to get some big.
But if we're going big, then it won't work.
Yeah.
But we can keep them the same color.
Lisa said this, this size.
He's
It's
saying
all comes
big.
from registered annually through the month of January.
Yeah.
So if you do it, if you register one in December, you're gonna have to do it again in January, and there's no proration of anything, you're gonna have to do it. Yeah, just saying how it is, don't get it changed.
And are you gonna charge a late fee? Like, I seen one place when I was looking, they had it like that where you came back you had to do it by a certain time. And if you didn't have it by a certain date, then you had they sent a fine to you. And then if you didn't pay that fine in 10 days, if you paid the fine in 10 days, they didn't charge you the fine fee.
What I would say then is, well, I didn't drive my car. It expired, I didn't drive it, and then I decided I want to re-register it, so I just came in. Why do I get fined? I didn't drive it when it was expired.
And what they
about
do
the
is,
driving, it's about having it.
yeah,
If
it's
you're
about
registered, you never move it out of your driveway.
Yeah.
You
You're
do?
registered
That's
golf
the
cart.
way, this is the way this particular city read. You had to pay it, you had to do it by a certain date. If you didn't, you got a letter, there was a fine. If you paid within 15 days of that fine, then you,
What if I bought a golf cart and I drove it from my front door to my mailbox and back, I still have to register in the city of Pennsylvania?
Yes.
And I never took it out on the road. That's part of it.
yeah, you have the liberty to do it. Yeah. If we do this, it's every cart. We don't specify any exemptions.
No. It doesn't say anything here about you're in trouble unless you're found operating it on a city street without a registration.
I was just telling you what other cities do, is that they have these fines. I
You
think
don't have to
that,
register if you're gonna operate on the city street, you're just gonna leave it in your own yard. According to this, you don't have to register.
Yeah, have it on the ranch or something.
yeah.
Well, right, I know, little lots.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's something to think about. And when you're wording this, it needs to be precise of exactly what you wanna do.
All right, let's go over what I've been told to do to this fee.
Okay.
Annual fee, $15 for the registration. Hours of operation will be sunrise to sunset. And I think we leave everything else still the same.
So,
Removal of the inspection. It's in the first paragraph under section 7.06, police inspection.
So also here it says, all registrations must be renewed annually during the month of January. If an owner fails to renew their registration on or before January 31st, their registration shall be deemed expired, and they will basically have to just come get a permit. So it's
I don't see it here since there's one.
deemed expired, and it's in that.
I have a strike through, right?
70.
Oh, because I struck through it. We did strike it out
There
last
you go.
time.
Okay. So. What if they sell their golf cart and they have a sticker on it for Mexico Beach and somebody say, I sell my golf cart to Miss Hamilton. Does Miss Hamilton have to come up and get another
She's
sticker?
supposed to come in.
So that has
For
to be,
herself.
that has to be addressed in here, I believe.
The ownership.
Ownership,
Change.
change of ownership. Yeah.
Okay, I'll word it, and then if you guys want to tweak it, we can always tweak
Do we want to put in here something about where they can and cannot park / drive?
it. You can't drive on the sidewalks.
Sidewalks, beach, crossing 98, private property.
That's what my question is, when I get recognized.
Sorry, you have to wait your turn.
I know.
You did not cross it.
See, that's my question.
Okay, hang on. So
I think.
they may have something really good to tell us, so I'm gonna
Okay.
go back up. John and Miss Jones.
Uh-oh. Yeah, Bucky.
Bad day to quit drinking.
Yeah, on the sidewalks.
Bad day to quit.
Sidewalks.
This actually has to do with the parks, as far as where we can take the golf carts or not. When Doug Baber was still here, we talked about a way to get the golf carts from the east part of town to Parker Park. And he was working on a way that if we could get a path behind that thing, whatever that building is up there, and then staying inside the guardrail once we filled in the front of Parker Park, that people could bring their golf carts to like the market days, during the days, anything, before dark. So I don't know if we're, because we were at that time planning to be a golf cart community. I thought that was one of the reasons we lowered the speed limits in town to 20 miles an hour. So with that in mind, is that still a goal? Or if you're gonna say not in the parks, and that's gonna kick the goal out?
Well, we're talking about not like driving inside the park, like where one day we'll probably have beautiful grass at
Right.
Parker Park, and we'll have, just, we don't want anybody when no one's there.
Well, instead of a bunch of cars being parked there, you can park more golf carts.
Yeah, absolutely, and
So I'm just saying, when you word this, if that's still the goal of the city, is to
on the
get
grass of the
people,
park.
get the people from the east end to Parker Park, if we can ever figure out a way, to get it without going on 98.
And, that's something we'll probably wanna come up with in the future, is getting crosswalks for 98, golf cart crossings for 98. Because we wanna connect the east side of the city and the west side of the city. And we can do that with Parker Park when they fill it in, if we do a little golf cart path in the front, like you said. Because then when we get, Sweetwater, we'll be able to ride through there, people will be able to go we'll really actually connect.
Exactly.
And this is actually going to help us move toward that. And then Parker Park being developed, is gonna actually help us too, if they do fill that in, and we can have a golf cart.
Okay, I just didn't want you to put something in this wording, to eliminate that, unless that's the plan, to eliminate it, and then turn around and have to change it again.
Right, yeah.
Are
and that's
you
good.
talking
We're
about
talking
putting golf cart crossings on Highway 98?
Yeah,
That's a state highway. Can we get it?
Only in a traffic light.
We got one in Port St. Joe.
yeah, they have one in Port St. Joe, so I know it can be done, but
Yeah.
it's probably, what are you laughing about?
You can apply to DOT for anything then.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
We do have a traffic.
Mayor, can I say something, John? Sure. There's part of the stormwater project, the master plan that the city approved a couple of meetings ago. They're envisioning a multi-use path going all the way from the 80 acres that will eventually be turned into a stormwater retention area and a park. And it'll start there and it'll go all the way to the boat. So they're envisioning tying the entire city together with a multi-use path where golf carts, bicycles, and everything else can be utilized.
So it will be a multi-use path.
Yes.
And in the past, that has been discussed, and every time there was a grant and that was in there, we were shot down, is what I had been told in the past. Ms. Dolly, did you have something?
No, I was just gonna, you touched on it just a little bit, the terminology is really ownership, golf cart ownership, not driving golf carts. So it's about ownership and registration, and getting clarity to that over. And then the subcategories would be driving golf carts, when, where.
The way it is now, it's just authorization to operate golf carts within the city of West Virginia.
Yeah, but that's saying operate, and what we're talking about is, like you said, you may not operate. I may just own one that sits in my driveway. I'm still paying $15 for that ownership, is the way I'm interpreting
That's
it.
not how it is now.
Well, if it says in your driveway and doesn't go off your property, it's when it, according to this, is when it's being operated in the city streets, on the city streets.
And what she's saying is when you change.
I'm saying if you own a golf cart We need to register it.
Even if
Because
you
you want
don't,
all of them registered.
right, even if you don't operate it, I don't,
Yeah.
you're telling me I
As long
can't.
as you have one.
But what, maybe I put it on a trailer and I take it to, I have a home somewhere else where you can go out, I don't know. And I don't wanna leave
Then
it.
leave it at the other house.
I don't know, I just, that's,
I mean, are we gonna end up, every explanation's gonna be, well, I'm not driving it this weekend, or it's been parked there 6 months, or.
and if you wanna operate it on the city streets of Mexico Beach, you have to have it registered. If you wanna
Well,
leave
we
it sitting
wanna-
in your backyard, you don't.
Okay, but if I'm the owner of the property and I rent my house out, which I don't, period, and I have a golf cart and they use it and I didn't register, I didn't give them
I'd
permission.
make
to
sure
use
that
it.
they wouldn't have access to it. I'd take the battery out. I wouldn't.
Well, I mean, that, you know, I just think
Well, I
that we're
don't
gonna.
think
it's
I don't think it's
all
the
about-
ownership, I think it's the operation.
Yeah, my boat never goes in the water. My jet ski doesn't, but I have it registered. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you have enough?
I think I do. We wanna make sure we got the change of ownership in there, the annual fee, is $15, hours of operation, sunrise and sunset. I'm scrapping any inspections. I think that's it for the moment.
Do we have in there about how they, well, I guess that's probably part of the equipment that requires to register?
No, the way it was written before, I can add. It just, the only thing that says here, during times of fog and smoke and rain and low light conditions, must be equipped with headlights, brake lights, sensing range.
Are we gonna require that to register them?
We could, you could. I don't.
I don't think that would be conducive of some of them.
I don't know, I don't know the golf cart, never had.
Another thing we might wanna put in there that I know is in, is the maximum number of people that can be on the golf cart. Maybe that needs to be in the rules
Just,
and regulations. that we-
only as many seats there is, you can have like 10 people.
Exactly, how many seats?
Also give like a child.
Not all golf carts have seat belts.
No, so it has to be number of seats.
Correct. Yeah, seat belts.
I've seen some loaded up golf carts.
I have to, that's one that popped out at me when I seen that.
Okay, we can add that.
Okay.
Couple comments.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I think y'all have a grace period from day of purchase to day of registration. Probably do it the same day as tonight and get it registered the same day. Maybe 10 days, 15 days,
So
whatever.
where did we have it?
Another-
Just because you own it, doesn't mean you have to have it registered.
You don't have to register until you're on a city
Until
street.
you decide you want to drive out of the city.
But there's no, yeah, there's no,
Well, thing is, I don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah, I don't need it, I'll write it in when you guys want to, it just seems a
You ought
little.
to stipulate, you're saying $15 a year, whether it be calendar year or fiscal year from the date you buy it. I don't know
How do you
What
enforce it?
license and of
They're
course,
not
that
going on
general,
somebody's private
as a
property.
month, they stamp it. And, I had 12 months from day of purchase.
well, Mr. Hamilton, it's only when you start operating it. So until you operate it on the city street, you don't have to have a registration. So
That's
there's
what
no,
I'm talking about.
no date.
Renewal.
January.
January to January, right. You got to the end of January to
It needs to
get
be
it.
stipulated in the
It's in there.
rules and regulations.
Yes, sir.
On the calendar year.
Very good. Okay.
I am having an issue with just saying, ownership, because it's like, okay, anybody can make up that excuse, oh, I don't really drive it, I just keep it in my yard. I think if you have a golf cart, then you have to register it, and you have to have a sticker. Because it's too many loopholes there, it's like, anybody can make up a story and go, oh, I never drive it. I don't
But if you do.
If you're not driving it,
You're not gonna get stopped.
you're not gonna get stopped.
But that could be, somebody can make up a story and tell a lie that they
What-
don't.
Well, they'll get a big fine.
If they're not registered.
But it's
right?
not registered.
Where are they gonna get stopped that they haven't driven to? at their
So
house.
are you saying if somebody says, oh, I don't have to register, I don't have to have a tag, because I don't really drive it?
Well, who's asking them? Who's asking them
But
why
they
it's
could
not
be
registered?
making that up, and they could really be driving it.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
who's
but
asking?
okay, you're
That's
saying
what-
right
that's
there,
what-
that's
yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
fault, at that point.
Yeah, the cops not doing your house.
Yeah.
they're
No,
not
I
on your
know a
own.
lot of people that I've represented in the past that didn't have a driver's license
Yeah.
and drove all over the place. But if they got pulled over, they were in big trouble.
But then they'd get fined. So it's cheaper for them to get the $15 to register it, whether they're using it or not at that time. Than if they use it that one time and get fined $50.
Yeah,
And
I'm
that's
just
why you
thinking,
take that element out, and you say, golf cart ownership, $15.
I'm just thinking, is Marty gonna come knock on your door because he sees a golf cart in your house? No. He's gonna wait till it's on the road. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to just put it for registered, operated on our streets, just like if you operate a car, you have to have a tag on it. You operate the golf cart, you have to have a sticker.
And where will it be displayed?
It's gonna be on the front. I think it's on the front windshield, is what it said. Is that what it said? I can't remember. It seems like they said it was gonna be on the front, upper right or lower, somewhere,
Lower left,
lower left,
driver's side.
Driver's side or
I think
something.
it's where golf cart.
The registration sticker should be placed on the driver's side, the rear fender area of the golf cart.
driver's side rear fender. Does that sound right?
Fender area, that's what it says.
It should be reflective so we can see it and it stands out at night.
In the back would probably be the best place for a fender.
Yes.
Sounds like a good plan. Okay.
So leave that alone,
That'd be-
the back fender area.
Yes, that works. We just want to clarify what I'm saying. Okay.
I have a clarity question, because now I've got myself confused. If I have an unregistered car at my house, is that legal or not? If it never moves, it's just at my house.
It's on private property that's not regulated by any homeowners association or anything like that.
So then there is no reason to tag a golf cart at my house until such time.
Not for code enforcement situation.
But a code issue, yeah.
I know for a fact, you know, to avoid having cars on blocks in the middle of town and in your front yard. You have to, your car, if it can be seen from the road, important thing, Joe, I'd have to look it up. Here, to be honest.
Bay County has the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you put it in the garage, you don't have to have anything on it, but if it's can be seen, it's gotta be a registered vehicle with a valid tag.
Got it. I got myself confused because I started thinking about HOAs. I'm like, well, HOAs do this, so we're not an HOA.
You
we're
just
city.
don't want someone with three cars on blocks in their front yard.
Got it.
Okay. So do y'all need a break?
I don't think so.
5-minute break? No? Y'all good? Okay. We're gonna move on, to our, special meetings. Okay. We're gonna go all the way down to our special meeting agenda. And we're gonna open with our first item of GCUC, change order for phase 1, phase 2, saltwater project. Mr. David?
Okay, so what you have before you are two change orders, if you deduct the change orders for phase 1 and phase 2 stormwater project. I was listening to the meeting, the last council meeting, and so I went and added a descriptive line item as far as what the original bid was, what was actually used, and what was actually being decreased by. in the system.
So item 7, road pipe over clean out sediment. So that was just, all they were gonna do was clean that out. There was never any pipe going to go into that, right?
Well, that's phase 1, yeah, so they just took a back truck and they just flushed some water and vacuumed it out. So the pipes that weren't damaged but were clogged up, they cleaned them out.
And you know the difference on this, Chris, the cost on the second one?
The 27, 26. That's the difference, correct?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, so the difference from that one was they had some sod that they had not used yet, so they went ahead and rolled that into the change order as well. So it increased the deducted change order by 27.6.
So does that mean you can put this off another week to pay it and get another $3,000? You're smart.
No, there's no more left to deduct.
Okay, no deductions.
Every penny last week, we've been $3,000.
So on the large amount, the large one,
Phase 2.
phase 2, on that one, Chris gave us another piece of paper. And the numbers are different. Okay, at the top, the new one says 218,
The payout?
580.
No,
Yeah.
it's the updated pay order.
It's updated. It's updated.
It's just the updated,
He gave us.
the updated change order. When you email
Yes.
this.
Yeah, we had one that was 215.
One was 215, 854, and the new one says 218.
Correct.
580.
Yes.
So this is the one I need to
Yes,
sign?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
good.
we revised it. There's only one, yeah.
All right. Alright, so any, you have anything else you want to?
Not for the
tell us
change
about?
order.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about change orders? Okay, so close to the discussion to the public, come to the table.
And I had already discussed this with Chris, I think it was just a typo error on line item number 5, when it said the savings, it just said $19, but I think it probably got cut off. And you really need to be 194110. The math on that, yeah. I'm gonna guess it got cut off when you said the savings was 19.
Oh, it's not my email, yeah.
Big difference there.
Yeah.
That's the email version.
It got cut off, okay.
This was email versus just the actual change order here.
Okay.
I have to apologize to Chris. I called him earlier and said $19 plus this and this doesn't make sense because I read that as 19 the whole time. Sorry for the phone call earlier. Now I get it. It messed up. Yeah. Thank you for that. I had it wrong too.
Good deal. So anything else on the change orders? Y'all are good with those? All right, I'll sign those. Get those signed. Done?
Do we need a motion? We need
Do we
to-
get-
And I think we should do, it's two
thought
different
we
change orders on two
do
different
one at a
phases, right?
time?
I would do two motions.
Okay, gotcha. We'll do it. All right.
Make a motion to approve the change order for phase 1.
Second.
Julie, call the roll, please.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Welly,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mayor Miller.
Yes. All right, we got change order 2. Do we have a motion to approve the change order for phase 2 for the sum of $215,850?
218.
Okay. Yes. So 218, 580.
I'll make a motion to accept the change order number 2 for the amount of 218,580.00.
I'll second
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Welly,
it. Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The next item is the GCUC pay request number 4, stormwater repair project. Open hearing to Jacob first.
So this is a progressive pay application, this is not the final one. However, with the change orders you just approved, we're kind of rolling into zeroing everything out. On the second page of the pay app, we have a little tabulation form that basically tells you the original contract, the current work, the previous work, and then the total work completed. And then the quantity amounts that go with it. I think that was one of the questions from the last meeting, that information wasn't known.
How much was left? Yeah.
After after this payment and with the change order, the only thing left is the retainage, which is $49,711.45.
And you've inspected it, to substantially complete the work.
Yes, yeah, I just sent Chris the forms today for next
Yeah.
meeting. Yeah.
What do they do, a light study or?
Yeah, that line does not have any manholes in it, so there's no access to it. I mean, there's inlets, but, you know, they're small inlets. So, yeah, when we did periodic inspections, so when they went through and they did the installations, you know, we were periodically out there watching them do the connections and stuff like that. That whole line, when we started doing the work, what was in the ground was, I don't know how it got put in. It's pretty terrible. So the city's much better off with the new line.
Good, they had talked about a couple different ways to test it.
Yeah, I heard the comment, you don't pull a mandrel, at least on a 36-inch pipe. Typically, for smaller pipes, and you're really looking for deflection when you do your compaction on top of the pipe, you wanna make sure the pipe's still round. So they pull a mandrel through it and make sure it goes through easy. But for a 36-inch pipe, you don't do that.
So you actually just rope it and pull it through?
It's a little device, it's not really a ball, but it's got the dimension of the diameter of the pipe, and they just kind of pull it through.
Same theory as a ball.
Yeah, same theory.
So when the pipe went in, was it graded it on which way the water's gonna flow? Cause if there was one point on Florida, it looked like the water flowed this way, and the other point looked like it flowed that way.
Yeah, when FEMA only paid for pipe replacement. They did not pay for any kind of regrading. So we didn't get ground survey before this project started. So we were pretty limited on what the contractor could do. Basically, he was pulling it out and putting it in from end to end. So the existing inlets where they were and just tying them together. And yeah, the grades, they actually break a little bit. Some of the water, we thought it went all the way from First to the canal. It doesn't. It goes a couple hundred feet from First and comes back and goes through a ditch section, then into the box culvert under the palms, and then goes to the canal. And then the other part of it actually runs to 8th Street. So it surprised us as well.
So is it gonna take care of this?
Is that something we would have a diagram of how that water flows?
The city does not have any record.
Is there any way to start taking records? We need to know which way our water's flowing. I think that, I don't think that 80 acres is gonna work if your water's flowing, trying to flow up here.
Well, there's gonna be some work to divert that water back to the east, because right now everything's trying to flow to the 8th Street Canal. I digress off the topic, but yeah, there's some work ahead of them for that.
Do we have a plan for that? Does the city have a plan for that?
That's what they're working on with that stormwater master plan. A couple of meetings I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, let me ask you something, Benji, standing there.
Right, yeah.
When I think about this whole stormwater thing, and I think about how we have taken money, a couple, $2 million, a little more? And we filled in, we did ditches and put sod in it, and we put this pipe on Florida, and we have really no plan of where this water's going.
No, the pipe on Florida existed before. We just replaced it. It was damaged in the hurricane.
Yeah.
So FEMA allowed the city to go in and just replace that pipe.
Right.
But, I mean, we have a better understanding of where it's going now that we've got in there and figured it out.
Okay. I just wouldn't think that you spend $2 million on stormwater and not know where that stormwater's going.
Well, and that was the award. FEMA said they granted the city $4 million to replace the 36-inch pipe. Much like we thought it was a 48-inch pipe. I explained to you, and that was because when FEMA came out to do the damage assessment, they called it a 48-inch pipe, and the city doesn't have any records on it, so we rolled with 48-inch pipe. Okay. It wasn't until they pulled that bus stop off, and we're scratching our heads going, that's a 36-inch pipe. So.
Yeah, okay. All right, let me open it to the public.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any public? Okay, close the public, no discussion of the table. Any?
Mike, who goes behind y'all to verify what you've done is correct?
The city Tommy should go and do his own inspection.
So has that been done?
Tommy and I have been very hands-on out there.
So is there documentation, you know, if we had to go back in time and go, okay, yeah, here it is, it's documented, not just word of mouth between a couple of guys? I mean, you know,
Yeah, we have, there's a set of plans that, for the work that was done.
and so the city will receive that.
Yeah, they have, yeah.
We got that, Chris?
I mean, I don't have it wrong.
Okay. So will anybody else, once that documentation is there, will anybody else who knows what they're looking at be able to see that? Okay. So who would that person be in our city? I mean, that, you're saying what, between you and Tommy, but who else can verify that everything is correct?
Well, I mean, that's what we pay the engineers for.
Yeah, I give everything that we have, I mean, even stuff that we haven't worked on, what I found in just in records, I send over to Julie. She puts them on a thumb drive. Use water or sewer or, you know, stormwater or anything like that. Anything I think the city needs for records, because I was told we had a hurricane, we have no records.
You know, and that's a little bit of why I asked for, with change orders, so it be listed out. So if you have a contract that says, oh, well, they did this and they replaced this pipe up under the street,
Right.
and then something happens to that street pipe, you're going, well, they just replaced that, so. But then we, you know, have something saying it was not replaced, that's why we go there. You have anything for David?
David, I'm gonna ask you a question that has to do with what you stated, okay? You just replaced pipe, so that's what we got paid to do. Don't you think that there was a responsibility to have that flow a certain way? No?
No, I mean, FEMA was not going to reimburse the city. If we went through and redesigned this whole thing, FEMA would not reimburse the city for that. I mean, it would be a whole lot more money. I mean, you saw just with the material cost. There's nothing wrong with the way it flows right now. We just did not know which way it's flowing because no one had records of it.
So it's currently flowing two different ways?
Right. It all ends up in the 8th Street Canal.
Is that what we wanted? Is that the end result?
Yeah, I mean, it makes it up to the 8th Street Canal. I mean,
As a subcontractor for it, do you think we should have a mapped out?
Oh, definitely,
system?
definitely. I wanted, well, you know, this started way before Mario, but when we actually started putting the plan together, I wanted to do a ground survey of the whole city. Mario said, no, they don't have the money for it. That would have, I mean, that's kind of like if the doctor goes and operates, he needs an x-ray. We go to design, we need ground survey.
Yeah, I think when we're laying pipe, I think laying the pipe and the flow of the water, we're in control of. And if we're just laying the pipe, we're not in control of it. So I would suggest that as a subcontractor, you start pushing the city for that. And asking the city that.
Well, but it's FEMA. FEMA's the one that drew the line on what the city.
I know, but somebody needs to raise their hand.
Oh, we did. I did.
When you're talking ground survey, are you talking LiDAR, or are you just talking like actual survey crews out here?
Act survey crew taking shots, getting inverts.
The stormwater master plan that I keep bringing up, they're gonna be doing some of that work, but they're also gonna be doing LiDAR.
Yeah, you can pull LiDAR off of NOAA right now if you want. I can pull that for you, but it's limited to, you know, on the ground. It's not gonna get subsurface and look at pipe inverse and elevation.
This is a downfall of FEMA, so you have to go what's existing instead of re-engineering.
Right, yeah. They're only gonna pay for pre-storm conditions.
And would you have recommended that the city step up and make sure that those pipes?
No, I probably would not have changed the way it was flowing, because the ditch that is down there on First Street is of substantial size. They did a little cleaning on that as well, so it should flow pretty good. It kind of runs a border of the 80 acres that you guys have, and then turns under to the box culvert under the palms, and flows back that way. So it works. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with it.
All right,
Madam,
anything else? Oh, I'm sorry.
you're speaking about the First Street. It actually goes behind the houses on First, and then it hits back with the 80 acres.
The behind the houses on First, I think that water's coming up from Gulf Canyon on the other side of 386. And then it shakes that ditch and then kind of flows back into the box culvert.
So that water is flowing underneath 386.
Yeah, there's a box culvert. Yeah, there's two box culverts under 386. One's up toward La Siesta, and the other one's a little bit further down, coming toward C Street or whatever.
So then the water coming off of Ford will not go behind First Street, it'll continue on Ford immediately.
Yeah, those 5 or 6 houses on First Street. I'll have to look on that.
It's more than 5 or 6, but yeah. My medicine's wearing off.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions, debate? Do we want to entertain a motion to, do the GCUC pay request number 4, solar repair project?
I'd make a motion to approve pay request number 4 for GCUC in the amount of $450,031.15.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Kimberly?
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mr. Welly?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Any other questions on those projects along here?
No, actually, no one all of the projects you're involved in.
I know David works on Easter time. I passed out those certificates of substantial completion, and he was hoping that the council would approve those tonight. So I was gonna see if we could maybe push back number 3, and if the council's willing to discuss those and maybe vote on them. If not, then we can let David know that you want more time to review them, and he can go ahead and leave.
Okay.
I think it's been such a long meeting already, maybe we you know, have
Time
more
it's
to
not on the
review.
agenda.
Okay.
So-
Next item on the, thank you, David.
Did it vote?
We did that.
Yeah.
Call the roll.
Yeah.
It's getting late for me. He's on Eastern.
Okay, guys, number 3, the recommendation for state appropriation funding. We have to November 5th if we want to put something else in. Right now, we do have in for the pier, for the extension part that FEMA will not pay for. I think we have a $10 million dollar request for that in, and we were looking to maybe put something else with this, and Miss, I'm gonna open it up to the public discussion. Lisa, did you want to discuss any of this?
Y'all? I've been sitting here too long. Y'all have my ideas. Do you have questions for me? I mean, I thought I was pretty blunt and self-explanatory.
So Lisa sent us an email, made some recommendations, basically, talking about the Sweetwater development. Recommended maybe the city try to purchase, that property versus having them develop. You know, her big concern is that we are, dependent upon the boat ramps that are technically owned and only leased by us, technically owned by the St. Joe Company.
What I suggested was that the city buy the property, because this is the only property in the town where the city could potentially build its own boat ramp. And also with that acreage, the city could also add its own retail, office space and affordable workforce housing. And you have my reasons. I have always considered the Sweetwater development to be extremely detrimental to the town. I've given you my reasons there. I think that anything that is as harmful as I consider the Sweetwater development to be should not be permitted. And the only acceptable use for that Sweetwater property is as a city-owned property with the city doing its thing there. So I figured somebody would probably have a question, or you just laugh it out of the room.
It all sounds like great ideas, you know, like wonderful ideas, but I think the likelihood that we would be able to fund all that.
I would not expect that the legislature would give you enough to buy that. Your concern would be to purchase property. There is most definitely money for affordable workforce housing, for retail recovery. This is still part of the recovery plan for the town. I think that buying that property is right down the alley of Triumph Gulf Coast. They have been awarding money left and right. And I think that if the city made a concerted, good, tight presentation to Triumph Gulf Coast, they could get part or all of the money. So I think it is worth putting together something and trying this, because I think to do nothing is unacceptable by this council. This should have been done and considered by the previous administrations. Nothing was done. It was not even allowed to be discussed. This is the one last shot the city has to build its own city-owned boat ramp, which I think is a necessity. I'm not a boater, but even I understand the importance of the city owning the boat ramp. And I think this is something that should be considered, and I would be extremely disappointed if y'all turned out to be just like the other administrations and said, just threw up your hands and said, oh gosh, it's just too much to ask for. You never know until you try. And since the council's job is to protect the city and its citizens, I think this is something that y'all should definitely consider.
Any other discussion?
Let's do the next one, Will. We'll do them both, right?
Yes.
What is affordable housing these days?
Affordable housing can be easily set for Mexico Beach. I don't care what anybody else calls affordable housing elsewhere. You can set it by the salaries of the city employees. I have that information. And affordable housing for city employees is between $800 and $1,400 a month, depending on what you make. 66% of them would be between $800 and $1,200.
It'd be subsidized housing similar to HUD.
And
Would you have them
no, I'm not
and
talking about
administer-
Section 8 housing at all. And I didn't put all of that in here because that's not the real question. The question right here tonight is going after the property, buying the property. That's the question tonight. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it, but right now my idea is to buy the property, and that is one of the uses. The primary uses for this: build the city's own boat ramp, stop the overuse of the canal by excess boaters, protect the wetlands far better than having it paved over with a development, use it as an economic engine to start the second phase of building, which is to bring the businesses back to town, and to save at least 4 neighborhoods that would be negatively affected by the Sweetwater thing. That's the whole deal. So I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Anybody else in the? Okay, we can always make it, let's close that. Let's bring it to the table for discussion.
Lisa, just so
Yes,
you know, and
I'm
everybody else knows that no, you're fine, you don't have to come back up here. I just want to let you know and everybody else know that over the last week, I spoke to two different developers about workforce housing, and I've got a face-to-face meeting with one next week. So, it's something that is going on, even though we don't talk about it here at the table, you know.
Well,
we're not
that is
working that
very
issue.
interesting. That's the first time it's happened in over 9 years. So.
I've been gone 9 years.
I also want to mention that in the LDR, it used to say, and I think it's still there, I didn't have time to look it up, we have a provision in the LDR that requires developers to hold back 10% of any development for affordable housing. That has never been enforced. We would have a significant amount of affordable housing, and I'm talking workforce housing. Affordable workforce housing, if that had been enforced. So that is something that you definitely need to look into.
Anybody else? Okay. So, bring it to the table, we're talking about appropriations. When Lisa sent me this, my mind immediately went, it would be great if we couldn't get all of that, if we could get the part that connects Parker Park on the backside,
where the boat ramp would be, at least get that from them. I don't know that it's even workable, but we can put in for appropriation, but I don't even know what we put in for appropriation.
Let me
Yeah.
show on the map. The round triangle area is the area we're talking about. And the canal runs up here and then it runs down through here and then it runs through here. This very corner, which is right at the 36th Street Bridge, that is where Sweetwater, or at least before, had planned to put their boat ramp, and because the leg of the canal up here is what they have said that they have been given permission to dredge and use. They can't use the one down here. The boat ramp would need to go right up here.
That last plan had it in that corner,
Uh,
right up there.
it had to be up here because
Yep.
they still have to use this.
That's where it was.
They started out over here and over here. But I think, and of course, this is all they're saying. Don't know if it's actually true or not. But the boat ramp would have to be probably right here. So that's what I'm talking about.
When you look at their plan, they have the canal runs through, and they have the upper portion of the 78 houses. And then they have-
North-south.
Yeah. the
And
other portion.
they cannot dredge the north-south or the lower
Right.
portion, just that east-west upper
So
portion.
it would be a great idea if we could, nothing else but on that section, but I don't know that we're not too far into the game with them that they're. would
Well,
not be
I'm
interested.
sure they've got their preliminary plat, but at the same time, I think it is very definitely worth looking at because you need to look at how that development is going to affect the entire town. And that was not really considered before. So there's a lot of movable parts to this, but I would like to see the council at least make an effort.
I just wrote down, do we even know if they'd be willing to sell and what that number would be?
Well, I don't know if they would either.
But we can throw a number out there and
Yes,
if we get it.
and I gave you a number.
I think your number's too low.
I think the number's too low, but again, you're not asking the legislature for all of the money. You need to go and tap all these other sources.
And even if voters here had to pay a fee until it was paid off.
There you go.
I mean, that's what they do on highways with tunnels and bridges. They put a toll on and then once it's paid for, they take the toll off.
So to say,
All the money we're spending.
All right, so Lisa brought two things, purchase of Sweetwater and, funding a rebuild for the old city firehouse on 14th Street. Uses full-service post office in the community room as well as the book room.
We had that pretty much started.
Yeah.
And then, Brian from Atkins suggested that we stop and not, because FEMA could be very sticky about the old firehouse, because we're not doing that, we're getting the new complex built. So, understand that. And then the post office, when they found out that the community was actually raising money, the US Postal Service jumped in and stopped that right off the bat. So we had funding and labor and materials already committed to rebuild the old firehouse until those two things happened. And it was to be half of the bottom, it was going to be the post office and the other half was community room. I think since there was no provision made for any post office in the new municipal complex, of course, that it still needs to be considered. Putting the post office back here is what I consider an essential service. It has been a very difficult thing for us to lose that post office, both business-wise and for the people who live here. I consider it an essential service. And I think it behooves y'all as the current council to actively try to get that back. I know that Rick Scott jumped right on Sanibel Island and got their post office right back after the, what was it, Ida, whatever the hurricane was that hit them. He could do that for Mexico Beach. We could put that in suspension until we got a building complete. That's the only building that we've got that we could put a post office in. But I think it's worth it.
And from my understanding, we are still at the standstill FEMA on that.
Yes.
We can't do anything with that building, and it really appears like they're gonna want us to tear it down. Which breaks my heart because it doesn't look like a bad building, and I'm very,
You know, and there's also the possibility that it could be deeded to a nonprofit citizen organization in perpetuity so that the citizens would own the building and could put the post office in it. There are other options to look at before you just say it can't be, you know, so to get a post office back, I think it's worth it. What, Adrian?
I really, really want a post office, but I don't believe the USPS will even give us one because they won't even give us a blue box that I've been begging them for a year.
It takes US congressional pressure to do it, and we did not go that way.
Because we can't even get a blue box.
I know we can't, I know that, but I think it's worth it.
Can we put something like that there because it's a residential neighborhood? As far as parking for meetings and stuff? How will the neighbors?
Well, it's its own public institution.
Well, it used to be.
I understand, but will it be big enough to hold parking to
Yes,
overflow
yes,
into the neighborhood?
yes. Because remember, it wasn't just the fire station, it was the police station. There's ample parking.
And the building parking.
Because as a residential person that would live on that street, they
Yeah.
probably are gonna have concerns with traffic.
It would be,
Because it's
it
like
would
a-
be much better, it would be much better than having the fire department there and having all the engines coming out,
I'm not
so.
disagreeing with
Yeah.
you, but I'm just saying, if legally we can do that, then. it's
Yes,
not a
legally
problem.
we can, yes.
all right, let's talk about appropriations. Is there anything anyone else can think of that y'all would like to see us get appropriations for our city? I think we need to at least ask for one more thing. Okay?
Multi-use pad. We talked about it earlier, the multi-use pad. Did we submit that? Did we consider submitting that? Do we know a price for that?
Multi-use.
No, to connect the two sides of town.
Or didn't he say that was in that project?
He said it's
already?
in that project,
I mean, it's projected, you know, but right now, the only thing that's been funded by this $1 million is the study to get to that point. So then we have to get money to actually fund the stormwater
So
project
do we-
and multi-use pad.
And we may,
So do we
we may at
request-
that, yeah, we may at that point, you know, when they get food, they may say, like Doug was telling me, or maybe was it Mario? Mario said, oh, every time we've ever asked about having some type of golf cart path, even like when they were doing something, they were like, no, we're not gonna help y'all with that kind of grant. So,
But along the lines he said, is we got the $1 million for this first part, why don't we go for the next part to get that funded through appropriation? I mean, we're gonna get this first study funded, and then how are we gonna pay for the next phase? We're not, until we get a grant or an appropriation.
You
Maybe
want
that's
to
what we can put in.
I got it.
item, the
okay,
water tower.
water
About
tower,
replacing the water tower.
I agree with that, I had that down also.
By the hurricane, so should have some funds available to replace it.
I have some insight into the water tower. So that water tower was actually, before the hurricane, was taken out of service and was going to be removed. And then after they removed it, they left it sit, and then when it fell, they said, okay, now it's removed. That was, the plan was to remove it anyway, because it wasn't used. We no longer need a water tower.
Yeah, I think the water tower along with collection system, water treatment system, and water quality system, a combined system that improves of what we currently have based on the developers that we have coming in.
Alternate water source, remember that?
How many and what horsepower pumps do we have to keep pressure up within the city limits? And what's the utility cost of that versus a fraction of the horsepower required to pump water up 40 feet. And
Let me
the
ask
gravity
you-
take over.
Could we not ask for appropriations for the pipe that would connect the rest of our city with the water? As the development's gonna come in, that
4,200.
Yeah, the 4,200 feet.
Why should we pay for it?
Hmm.
Why should we pay for it?
That's right.
Well, we need to connect our city up.
Well, connect it from out there. Don't bring it into the city.
Well, we can't do that.
Sure you
If
can.
we provide water for these developments that are not connected to our, that lack because of that 4,200 feet?
4,200 feet.
4,200 feet, we have to chlorinate, it's extra on us, because we have to go out there and check the chlorination, we have to chlorinate it, we have to wash the
You have
pump,
to test it and chlorinate it if it's needed.
and they have to test it off and find out how much chlorination's in it. Some chlorination is in it, but that comes from Bay County. What it does, it comes up, ours ends over here. It comes up from Bay County and it's going to Sweetwater, not Sweetwater.
Farm
Sugar
Field,
sand.
Sugar
Sugar sand. And there's a chlorination pump there. And we have to maintain it. We have to make sure the chlorination is correct, because even though there's chlorinated water, it's not.
But that's all right to do if you don't have to bring it into the city and do it. I'd rather do it over there. You're tapping, you can tap right in that line, go straight into.
As a citizen, I would be vehemently against paying anything for any development. They should be putting their own infrastructure in. That's part of the deal.
Well, I understand your viewpoint there, but that's also why we collect impact fees.
Impact fees are a one-time fee. They get spent very quickly. This is an ongoing cost. Every developer who has been in the game understands that's part of the development cost and they fund it. We citizens should not.
Come see me tomorrow. Let's talk impact fees. I'll show you what's in the bank accounts and ask you if you
I
want to give
know,
that back to
because
the
they haven't
developers.
spent any of it.
And that's what we're talking about. They're spending it now.
No, the developer is responsible for that.
Okay, so, anyway, I think we need a 42 inch, I think we need to connect that, though we don't have. When the 120 acres on the other side of the street comes online,
I think we ask for everything and stop having hypotheticals.
Yeah.
Just send them in. Deal with it if we get
Let them
it.
deny, send them in,
That's right.
let them deny.
You don't get anything, you don't ask.
It may be Christmas, they may.
have we heard any more on that, by the way? Rondell? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Then you,
I was supposed to get something either today or tomorrow. I haven't got anything today, so I'm assuming I'll receive it tomorrow. I'll forward it to you whenever I get it.
Okay. So, let's go back to appropriations. What do we want to ask Chris to send appropriation in?
Ask for the moon.
What do
They
you
would
want?
tell us what the,
Do you have any ideas on what they need?
Chris, did you mention at the last meeting that you were concerned that we wouldn't have enough money for the pier and you might want to use it towards the pier?
We got,
Piers in.
we already got that one in there, yeah. Do you have
I
any ideas?
had the water system, including the water tower, but I think we ought to look at the whole collection system.
what do you mean by water system?
Well, if you have a water tower, we do collection of the water and test it, make sure that's all up to date. More technology than human drops, okay? Computerized system, water treatment system, and the quality of water, the system, how it's checked. These are all things that Glenn can update us on. We're not ahead of the technology, we're definitely behind it.
Have we thought about maybe, I know it would just be a drop in the bucket, if we ask for some appropriations toward doing a water treatment, sewage treatment plant of our
I
own.
think that's.
Yeah. I think we're,
That's
I think we're,
40, $50 million.
Yeah, but I think that's what he's talking, so
Yeah.
we don't need a water tower, we have pumps that keep our pressure, we have a computerized coordinator right now. So I think he's talking about our own water.
and Mr. Davis has told me, Glenn has told me that we need one, and he said there are all kinds of grants out there that we could start getting for them. He's like, he gets information on grants all the time for it. Our problem is, where is it? And if we were back, if we could get something on Sugar Sands or maybe beyond, not Sugar Sands, Sweetwater or beyond that, if we could go and purchase some property beyond that, then we could start toward our own water treatment plant. I think that's gonna be our future, that's what we're developing, and we're spending a lot of money in Bay County just to treat our water.
You have a
Take our
figure,
water. Gotta start somewhere, we'll just.
but do you have a figure on what
That's
we
how much
spend? We
how
spend
much
right
we
now
spend.
on sanitation?
I don't have that with me, I'll find it.
Do we not have a contract with Bacon
Mhm.
that we have to abide by?
Well,
Can we
part-
stop buying their water?
I don't think we can stop buying their water because of the debt,
Well,
the debt,
both sewer and water.
yeah, the debt contracts that we have.
On both, so we have a contract that goes to 2049.
Yeah, 2049, 2051 maybe.
My case, 2049, get something.
You're right.
You gotta start somewhere. So any appropriation ideas that we can send on, cause it's gotta be there by the fifth, to release the house.
I had down a recreation center, I'm not sure if that would be part of the city hall area. There, we identified for the future. Probably not an appropriation, but more planning.
Could we ask for some, and it would cost a ton, but could we ask for some more appropriations for improving our parks?
That was mentioned at the last meeting.
I think if we start improving our parks, that's, beautifying. That's something we probably could get versus something like, oh yeah, we want to. $40 million.
It's a land.
Yeah.
You need the land.
You guys also talked about restrooms, replacing the
Yeah.
restrooms at 8th Street
Street.
and under the Palms
Eighth
Park.
Street Restaurant, yep.
That's a priority, because I get scared going to the express lane, because every time I go there, they yell at me about the bathroom. So,
Are those still under a FEMA project?
The funding is still saying,
So what is the holdup on like the Eighth Street bathroom?
the bids that we received in for building,
Too high?
yes, extremely high, it was unrealistic.
Didn't we build those bathrooms ourselves, the city employees? We did before, why can't we do it again?
Well, it's FEMA projects, I don't know that city employees out there.
So could we not ask, if we have some FEMA money appropriated, but we don't have enough, could we ask for appropriations for this to, just like we're doing with the pier, ask for appropriations to be able to finish our bathrooms and parks? I mean, really, the bathrooms, the 8th Street and under the Palms, and then park revitalization in both Parker Park and under the Palms. Because really, the bathrooms are kind of part of that, other than the 8th Street bathroom, would be part of the parks.
Do the bathrooms have to be built to a certain specification?
I
Since it's
think
on
that's a
98.
problem on, I think that's the problem with one on 98, because there is such a the CC.
Hurricane rated.
CL line, huh?
Is it hurricane rated?
It's gotta be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but even if we didn't do anything but ask for appropriations for our parks to include bathrooms and other equipment that we need for our parks, that would be nice. Just park revitalization, including facilities. How do y'all feel about that?
It's a good suggestion. That store might be, possible if it's $1 million. Terms that we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, so,
And I think if you,
any other recommendations? We'll just at least go with that one. I think we did 2 last year. So.
like the bathroom idea.
That's an easy one.
Or we might split that up, say bathroom, 8th Street under Palms and Parker Park, permanent bathrooms, and then do a second appropriation for park revitalization. And we need to put sod out, whatever, a stage. I mean, that's things that we had talked about. Okay, so. Any questions?
Not for me.
Everybody good with bathrooms and park?
Sounds good.
Can you get that in the bid?
I'll try.
Need a commitment.
Well,
Second. It only has to be to the house by then. It doesn't necessarily have to be to the city, but it has to be in the house. So,
Yeah, I'll get it.
okay. So, do I have a motion to, put in appropriations with the House and Senate for, park revitalization and bathroom replacement, whatever.
Make a motion, we put in appropriations request for park revitalization, and the restrooms at Parker Park.
the pier extension's already in, so we don't need to do that.
Would you gonna say like permanent restrooms, because we're not gonna want.
Thank Chris to write that up.
I think they'd find temporary bathroom.
Okay. So do I have a second on, Mr. Wolf's motion? Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Julie?
Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Mrs. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Welly,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Okay. So do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, my Lord. Look at everybody getting up. Have a great evening. See you later. You're welcome. So I said, oh, I gotta stop this. Hang on.
I said,